Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SuperShow podcast, episode number 109. I'm your host for this week, Jamie. Oh, I swallowed my word. That was the third time I've done this intro, folks. This is the third time I've done it.
Please just keep this. Please just get.
Oh, you know I have to keep it now.
Put in the other two as well, just like as like flashback sequences. It's perfect.
That'll be a bonus.
I'm your.
Yeah, I swallowed the word as if I don't eat enough already. I'm eating my own words.
Wow.
And that'll be a little perk then. Anyone who stays to the end of this fucking shit show gets to hear the first 3 takes of that intro that I fucked up already.
Well, not if Alex Jones is editing it.
Yeah, exactly. If Alex Jones is editing, we're lucky if we get an intro at all because, boy oh boy, last week, what happened, Jonesy?
Hey.
Actually,
Listen,
that's not fair.
What intro? My intro last week was on point.
Yeah, it was on point. But to Jonesy's defense, in the reason why there was no ending to the previous podcast on YouTube, like I think in terms of people on the show who have fucked up edits more, it's definitely on me. So I'll
yeah. I'm in the running
at
as
least
well.
it wasn't,
I've made some mistakes.
It was actually a Premiere Pro mess up. It corrupted the end of the video file. So the audio version of the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other podcasting platforms is absolutely fine. But when it comes to the video version, it just ends at like 20 minutes shy of the end of the podcast. Wow. Hard cut, which we were tempted to sort of re-upload, but decided against it because we were like, we were so tired by then and sort of done. You weren't missing much.
Sometimes you have to say fuck it.
I think it also added to the mystique of the podcast, right? Like nobody knows what happened. Like where did that video go? Why was it struck down? Did we do something mysterious in it? Plus,
I made a video of a civet when I first started out back in the 10 years ago.
What's a civet?
A civet is like
it's
a
wild
dog.
cat. Yeah.
Yeah. But I made this
long
video
body
for Diagonal View, the channel. And it was like a weird kind of quirky sideways glance channel. And it was okay. And halfway through the video, it freezes on the little civet's face like that, and the audio is just like, and the video got shitloads more views than we normally got on a video because people thought it was one of those like shock kind of horror videos.
Right. You show your kids, and then it's like.
And and all the people like in the comments were like, "Oh, this totally got me," and I was, it was a render error. It just
happy accident.
Yeah, but hey, that was the beauty of the internet back in the day, right? Where you could do anything, and now the only thing you're allowed to do is React channel. So,
and reacting to reacting now. This is what I've seen recently. Reactions to reactions, which is weird.
Jonesy, I want to do your fucking idea. Which maybe we'll talk about it later, but yeah, anyway.
It was an interesting idea. I'd be curious to see what kind of a take we end up naturally going with it if we ever pursued something like that. Like if it remains earnest or...
I'm 5,000% down, and maybe we just do it for the patrons.
But do you think it's earnest or satirical?
Are you talking about this? I'm going to type it in the thing.
Okay, we're getting into real kind of podcastception.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that's a great idea. When I said it, because jokingly, I think I said it to Jamie, like, "Oh, this would be funny," and then I thought that's actually quite a good idea.
Well, what is tell us the idea then?
Okay.
You know what?
No, hang on. All the best podcast topics are the ones that the audience have no idea about, right? Like we'll just keep talking about. No, I'm joking.
So we've derailed the intro to this anyway, so might as well go hard. So the idea, we're all fans, I'd say, of video reviews, right? For video games, and I've been for a long time like this, where I always used to go to like GameSpot as soon as they were doing like video reviews. I used to love checking out the new games on there, and did a few back in the day, like video reviews, but like a long time ago now. And we're talking about doing them again for SuperShow. And we're like, but everyone else does these. We don't get access to the games early. So what are we going to do? Then the real idea for the review jumped into my head. So this is, because we're after the fact anyway, we wait till all the reviews come out when the embargo drops for a game. And then we play the game. But when we review the reviews that are out there from the big publications, and we sort of go into the, what if we think they're talking bollocks, if they're just making it up, if they're focusing too much on one thing over something else. Yeah, I thought that'd be quite an interesting sort of way to look at that whole.
I love
that whole culture.
I love it.
It could be fun.
It's so much fun, man.
I love the idea that we would become like the hated people. That we'd start getting invited to shows and stuff, and people would give us like a dodgy look because they're those bastards that criticize our reviews every time we put them out.
Jonesy, don't you remember that kind of happened when we were at ATG and we were invited to do like a Destruction Derby thing, and it was you, me, and Steph. And it was for Rage 2, if I'm not mistaken. And we got in these like banged up cars, and it was raining, it was muddy, and
it was so much fun.
It was
a great day.
Amazing. Maybe like a definite highlight. But as we're piling into the cars, you know, the nerves are kind of starting to set in a bit, and you're just like, oh, I'm getting into a fucking metal death trap, and going to race around other metal death traps. And as I was getting into the car, it was fucking Dave Jackson from PlayStation Access.
Right.
And we had our helmets on, so I couldn't see who he was. But I was like, I introduced myself. I'm Chris from All Time Gaming. He's like, oh, I'm, you know, from PlayStation Access. I was like, oh, I know you guys. And I was like, you probably haven't heard of us. And he just said, oh no, I've heard of you. And he just left it. He just left it at that. He just left it like that. And I was like, wow, he doesn't like us.
What's funny is because you've had a couple of incidences like that where you've met people from the industry and they've been like, oh yeah, I know who you are. I am so idiotic with that stuff. I have no idea who anyone is. I'm like, I wouldn't. So if they said, oh, I know who you are, I'd be like, I don't know who you are. Like, I definitely don't watch your channel. So I like the idea though that we're rubbing people up the wrong way or the right way.
I think also like it's somewhat inevitable when you realise, especially based just on the UK and to be even more specific, the London-based side of things, it can all get a little bit incestuous. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but there was another point again at ATG where I won't say where specifically, but and you guys both knew about this while it was happening. But I applied for a job somewhere else, another establishment that covers games. Didn't get the job, and we just kept bumping into the same people. Literally, the people who were interviewing me at all these events. Like when Chris and I went to a Mortal Kombat event at some nightclub somewhere, and they were behind us in the queue.
Coco in Camden.
There you go. That's the bloke who was interviewing me last week. Great. He stood 3 feet behind me, and he didn't offer me a job, so we're sort of like, it wasn't an awkward standoff. I just completely ignored him. That seemed like the polite thing to do.
It is weird that you're right. There is a weird kind of atmosphere around it, and like you said, because it's quite a small place as well, you do bump into like similar people again. But yeah, no, it's all fun though. Like it's all cool, right? We've met when I met Boogie, like I really like that. He had no idea who I was. That was great. And then we met who is it we worked with? The guy who came and did a VO of us. I can't remember his name.
What?
The big fella.
Larry Bundy Jr.
Larry Bundy Jr. That was cool.
Oh, yeah.
To do
big LBJ.
VO with him. That was nice.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Anyway, lads, we've started talking about all kinds of topics right now, and I've forgotten one of the most important principles of not just podcasting, but making any video content whatsoever, which you've got to remember, as unlikely as it sounds in our case, that any video, any piece of content could be someone's first when it comes to their introduction to you.
Well, so they've fucked off by now.
Yeah, I'm sure they've left. If you haven't left and it is somehow your first episode of this podcast, welcome. I fucked this part up earlier, but I am actually hosting this week. I'm Jamie, and I'm joined by a couple of players ready to break down the latest and greatest news the games industry have to offer. Two boys that, from what I gather, are eminently ready to activate Mouthful mode at the drop of a hat. It's my good friends Chris and Alex. Welcome, boys.
Hello,
mate.
See, I got a little topical Nintendo Direct reference into the intro, just like 15 minutes late.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. It was very good. I want to be as mouthful as Kirby can be.
Well, we can arrange that.
I mean, it kind of makes me uncomfortable, guys. I'm not gonna.
Now I just want to see fan art of Jonesy's like face morphed around a vending machine or a car or something, the same way they did with Kirby.
Anyway. Don't you think the mouthful thing is just a rip off of Hattie or Cappy?
There were a lot of Odyssey vibes going on.
Yeah.
But then
there's like, but what can we do? Like the Cap thing where you can be anything you want, but we've got
his
Kirby.
Defense,
let's just have him like just smother himself on something and take over it.
Yeah, I suppose that would because Kirby is one of the OGs of kind of absorbing something's form and taking that form for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kind of the swimming cap effect where he just wraps himself over these enormous objects a little. But you know what? We'll get to all of that because we've got an entire direct to break down and all the reveals and trailers and weird Japanese shit that had to offer. In the meantime, I will say that if you're watching this on YouTube, there are a number of things that you can do to not just help us out, but also help yourselves out, have a superior experience with us while you're here. Things like liking the video or leaving a comment down below. And hey, if you leave a good enough comment, we might read it next week as part of our trademarked comment of the week section. And if you're more sort of the social media kind, then you can head over to Twitter @SuperShow Pod. You can engage with us. You can send us a tweet. You can send us a DM. Potentially, Chris might read it. He might not. No promises. And also, I will just say, if you don't want to watch the video version of this podcast for any reason, we're available on all major podcasting platforms in audio-only version. That's Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. That's right. We haven't left Spotify yet. Rogan's still up to his shenanigans, but we're staying put. You know, we're going to give him a couple of weeks, see if he retracts any statements, and then us, Neil Young, and whoever that other Canadian bint was, we're creating our own platform. Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell. For a minute, I was like, Alanis Morissette? But no, Joni Mitchell.
I don't even know if Joni Mitchell is Canadian. It's just like leaving Spotify because of Joe Rogan seems like a Canadian thing to do.
Fair.
Does it?
Yeah, because they're so sensitive. I apologise, Tony. I know there are actually Canadians listening.
Oh, I think of them as being like a tougher version of Americans because they have to live in the harsher wilderness.
See, they deal with harsh environments. They play ice hockey, but they're soft in their core.
Oh, do you know what's really weird?
They're super friendly, right? And super polite. That's the kind of stereotype, at least.
Yeah. Do you know what's really weird? Jamie's right. She is Canadian, which makes me think that he was trying to low key it, and actually he's a big Joni Mitchell fan.
I'm on the record, no pun intended, as being a fan of a few Joni Mitchell tracks. I think A Case of You is an all-time banger, and I think if you need to cry and or wank, or do both at the same time, I think Joni Mitchell's the gal for you.
Wow.
Hey, look, I'm not hating. Alanis Morissette is another Canadian songstress I've already mentioned, and she was my jam back in the day.
For wanking or crying?
Just for it being angsty, just angsty teen.
Well, I tried to time my ejaculation to when she says it's like rain, because mine is.
It's like rain.
On your wedding day.
Yeah, imagine,
oh God, on the wedding day.
That's a weird question. Do you reckon anyone's actually ever had to have a wank on their wedding day because they couldn't consummate the marriage in the traditional sense?
Oh, like
I don't think
after
it counts.
Because I would imagine a lot of people would do it beforehand just to kind of like still the nerves. Like
that's a good shout.
Wall Street style, right? Like
yeah.
After, I don't think it counts if that's your version of consummating the marriage.
But there must be someone
I don't really want to, and he's like, don't worry, I'll do it for both.
But
of us.
what if the bride has too much to drink and passes out, and he's like, well, I'm not going to, mark my marriage by becoming a rapist. Goes into the bathroom, knocks one out, and that was his wedding day.
That doesn't. Oh, I see what you mean.
It's like rain on your wedding day.
I imagine that happens more often than people let on.
What, they pass out?
Yeah.
Yeah, or they just don't end up getting. That's what the honeymoon's for, right? You make up for all the bullshit that planning a wedding kind of, because you're probably so stressed and relieved that it's all over and that everyone showed up and that the dress was there and all the cake didn't fall over and you probably just want to sleep.
Well, dude, yeah, exactly. You probably would have been up by, I don't know, like 7 and then go to sleep like well past 12 hours past that.
Also, these days, you've probably got 3 kids by the time you get married, so you're not that bothered anyway about consummating it. It's been there, done that. True. Back in the day when it was the first time, you would have been like, wake up. I'm 40 and I've never got any.
Fellas, as we stray further and further from God's light in this podcast, can I throw out a question to the audience, do you think? All right.
Yeah. Go for it.
Because clearly we started this podcast as a gaming news and industry podcast, but I feel like each episode we're straying further and further, and I just want to know how people feel about this. Because
I love it. Okay.
Stay on all the comments. Stay on point. You're so annoying, you 3.
I mean, probably
50% of the comments. No, I love it. Please do more of the.
I think that's why we probably haven't gained subscribers in the better part of a year. But
see the vibe I've always got from the comments is. They want us to go wherever we go, and that the people who are here for hardcore gaming stuff, as long as we loop back around to that at some point and don't lose sight of why we're here, we're mostly okay.
But is that how we grow, Jamie? Is that how we grow?
I mean, I don't want to tell you how I grow. That's very personal information.
I already know. I mean, I spent a couple of nights with you in.
I'll tell you one thing. It starts with pushing the play button on the best of Alanis Morissette, and it ends with rain on. No. Do you know what? Yeah, growth on YouTube is a weird old thing. I don't know the first thing about it anymore. I've given up, basically.
Do you know what we need that would help us?
Reacts?
No. Well, a review would, but also we need a cheeky little sting at the top of the podcast.
Do you know what? That could be quite nice. That would, sets the mood from the beginning, and it means I don't have to stumble over my words like 3 seconds into an actual episode.
You see,
I know.
Sorry, go, Josie.
I was going to say, I know he's a bit embattled at the moment, but I quite like the way that at the beginning of the Joe Rogan podcast, he has that little musical sting and then it just goes right into it and they're just chatting bollocks because that's like kind of what we do anyway. But because I cut it off last week, my fault. Some people would have heard this on the podcast on the audio version, but most people wouldn't. Yeah, we had the idea, which is actually to make a few cheeky little stings. We're going to do one each, aren't we? And then we're going to play them for the audience. And then we are going to push it out to you guys and ask you which sting you like the most. And then that one will become the sting for the show going forward. I think...
I mean, it's Fields of Barley, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then so I guess it will take us a few weeks to sort of play them all out. We'll make a long thing of it and drag it out. So it'll be like 3 weeks, maybe starting next week. And then people can say which one they like the most.
I'm just going to go out on the record and say... if you heard it last week, then fine. But to reiterate for the people that had it cut off, I don't like stings at the start. I'll play your little game, all right? Jigsaw, fucking hell. But I won't be happy about it, all right? And it's not like I'm going to make a shit one just because I don't give a shit. Like I'll put effort into it. And I'll try and make it as good as I can possibly make it. But I don't like the idea of a sting. Like,
do you know?
Maybe if my sting wins, then I have the right to say no sting. Fuck you guys.
I think also we can leave it open for the audience to say, actually, we like the way you just jump into it, or we want a sting. But
that's true. We we could say no sting could be an option as well. So we go, do you like this one, this one, this one?
Yeah. Do you like Roxanne? Do you like Fields of Barley?
Yeah, as fun as like a sting could be, though, I actually think that Chris has inadvertently stumbled onto an idea that's somehow even better than the sting competition to begin with, which is we write a spec script for a reboot of the Saw franchise, wherein, because it's his now new first film, Jigsaw is obsessed with having a musical jingle to accommodate him every time he appears on TV. So the first people he captures, he locks them up and says, actually, you don't have to do some weird shit to get out. You don't have to saw your leg off to get out. Just make me a great musical jingle. And
it's like an empty room.
Piano.
An empty room. Someone dead on the floor. Well, dead. And a table with a laptop on it. And it's just Ableton. And it's just like go crazy.
And then at some point,
at
some point you get a flashback to some earlier victim who got decapitated by the wire from it was just a banjo string that cut his head off. It was like part of Jigsaw's
and then Jigsaw comes out and says, "Well, we're never doing live instruments again."
Yeah, you have to do the voice though. Come on. Give us a Jigsaw.
I can't do the fucking Jigsaw.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? No peer pressure for accents because I know I don't like it either. But hey, I will say, if we do create and implement a little jingle, one place you can hear it other than on our YouTube channel or on the aforementioned podcasting platforms is Paisley Radio. Because this podcast is beamed out through paisleyradio.com and you can catch it on Thursdays at 10 p.m. and it's repeated on Mondays. And lads, there's something quite interesting about mentioning Paisley Radio at this point in the podcast. Because
shout out the Scots.
Shout out the Scots. But there's a particular reason, Chris, to shout out the Scots this week. Because some of the most famous Scots the games industry has to offer, well, what's left of them anyway, made headlines this week by, I guess, how would I frame this? Maybe announcing the most obviously announced game that was not yet announced, but we all knew it was announcement of the year. And of course, I'm talking about Grand Theft Auto 6.
Hey, before you launch into this, Jamie, can I just say, at least they didn't announce it by asking people to join them for work.
You're right. You're right. Okay, granted, this was not a job post. This wasn't Rockstar saying, "Come and join us." You know, we go to strip clubs every Thursday, and there's weird shit that goes on behind the scenes, and you can crunch for 300 hours a week. But at the same time, it was still a really shitty announcement on Twitter. Which, like, I know we joked about it before. What's that? Like the 4th or the 5th this year? Like there was Splinter Cell and there was Crisis, and I can't even remember some of the other ones now. But like
the survival game from Blizzard,
right? An amazing example, like a new Blizzard franchise and Grand Theft Auto 6 amongst the games so far in 2022 to essentially be announced via a tweet. A tweet which I will say up front for anyone wondering, like, doesn't say the name of the new game. It doesn't give a number. There's no Grand Theft Auto 6. There's no reference to like a city. It doesn't say how long it's been in development for. It just says that development was underway or well underway, depending on whether you read the website quote or the Twitter quote, which was fun to see people break that apart. And also, we don't know how far away it is. We just know that the game that they were definitely making they are in fact making.
Yeah, like big fucking wank.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like it's our fault a bit, the whole Twitter announcement thing, though, because what happens these days, it does seem like they're getting ready to announce it at a show, and they're going to release like just a logo, or they're going to have a bit of a sting, and they'll have something to say like this game's coming out. But then 3 weeks before the event, inevitably it will get leaked on Twitter by someone else saying, "Oh, we did a data scrape of this thing or whatever," and then they announce it, and then you get to the event and everyone already knows about it. So I kind of feel like maybe this is just some of the games industry people getting ahead of it and saying, you're going to ruin it anyway, so we're going to ruin it first.
Can I put the crease in your panties on that one, AJ?
Sure.
All right. Because you talk about Rockstar. What was the last game that they fucking announced? How did they announce it? And what happened around it?
I have no idea. What was it?
Red Dead Redemption 2. They fucking owned that. They owned it.
Yeah. That's the thing.
That was quite a while, but that's the thing. It's a long time ago now. But not like...
Rockstar have never announced apart from like spin-off projects or side projects like HD remakes and remasters and stuff like that, in terms of like mainline original IPs developed by Rockstar internally, I don't believe they've announced anything at a third-party event like ever. They announced Red Dead Redemption 2 by like they changed their banner to the color red. And then day 2 they did something else, and day 3 they did something else, and then there was a trailer on day 4.
Yeah.
I think look at obviously Red Dead was the announcement of Red Dead Redemption 2, Jesus Christ, was years ago. But I think nowadays the way that it happens is someone else leaks it on Twitter. So I'm not surprised that anyone who now says there's no point, we'll just like we'll just casually mention it in a tweet because someone else is going to do it.
Yeah. Again, you say that, but
anyway,
have you seen any footage of the supposed worked on and scrapped Bully 2? No,
not footage, but
have you seen any? Yeah, but like,
at some point,
I think you're getting caught up on the Rockstar thing. It's happened so often with other companies.
Other companies, sure, but like
you're getting a bit caught up.
Like fucking Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed stuff gets leaked because they have a fucking keychain.
Like, that's true. Actually, yeah, that was fucked up.
Like I get it. Like, it's not everyone.
The worst ones are the postings on like German Amazon. And it's like, oh shit.
Or do you remember Walmart Canada one year just fucking blew everyone out the water?
Like the entire year, yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's the NVIDIA GeForce Now kind of thing, which is like starting to take shape in interesting forms.
We're going to break down the direct later, and there was another like, hey, this was leaked on the NVIDIA GeForce Now list announcement from that. One thing I will say though, like about what Chris is saying, another reason that Rockstar are kind of different is that when you announce development of GTA 6, or even if you just announce and reveal GTA 6, you're not telling people something they don't know. People right now aren't sitting around going, I wonder if Rockstar are making a sequel to the best, basically the best-selling video game of all time if you ignore weird outliers like Minecraft and Tetris and shit like that. It's an inevitability. So again, why just... Maybe it's a weird shareholder thing. Maybe it was because of like an earnings call was coming up and they need to get stuff out of the way. But like and this is going to make me sound like a really dumb fanboy because I am. But even if they just like change their logo on socials to like a stylized version of the Roman numerals for 6, I'd have jizzed. And with this, I was like, I didn't jizz. I got hard, but I didn't jizz.
You wanted something. Yeah, no, I can understand why you want something a little more like punchy. To be fair,
like
I wonder if one of the things these days as well is that because game development seems to be much more like, it seems like it's gone more fluid. Like one game to another isn't quite as delineated maybe as it was back in the past. Maybe it's the existence of service games means they hang around for so much longer that there's less of an exact stop and then start on another project. So maybe to them it doesn't seem like it's as much of a thing as it would have been back in the day when it was like a hard and fast date. Like now we're working on this. Like you said, everyone just knew they were working on it. So it's kind of like
but there's also like this thing of like, well then if that is the case and they've got nothing to show for it and they're not using it to kind of say like come work with us essentially because we need people to work on it. But like, what's the fucking point? They're just opening themselves up to kind of like more scrutiny, which is unless it's like Jamie says, some kind of investment call thing, whatever. But the strange fucking thing is, when it was announced, it was buried at the bottom of a GTA Online announcement. Like,
true.
Like that's it's almost like Jamie said, like, change the fucking logo, and you don't have to say much more than that. But what you're doing by doing that is saying like, hey, we've got some news for you, and this is the fucking news, and it's as pure as you can get it, right? Whereas now it's like, well, it's a like potentially the biggest game on the planet to launch, right? Or let's put it this way, the follow-up to the biggest entertainment franchise on the planet is a footnote in something else.
Here's a question then. Do you think that because of the backlash that all these companies have had with crunch, like we've already joked about it, do you think that part of the reason they do like low-key reveals of big games now is because they don't want the hard and fast, hey, like even like Jamie said, let's say they change the logo to a 6. Yeah. That is like a power move, right? They know what that's going to do to the audience. Is not doing that and just having it as a footnote on something about GTA Online a way of maybe not getting into the mindset of right now, this is when we go hard on this game, we get it done, it's going to take this many years, why mention hard.
It? If you don't want people to get excited about it, then why mention it?
Because maybe like they need it's obviously happening and they don't want to get to a point where it's like, oh, it's
I've got news for you, Alex Jones. It's been happening for the past fucking however many years.
Like we'd reached the point now where if this post hadn't come out and Jason Schreier had tweeted GTA 6 is in development, the whole world would have gone, what? I know. Like, there's no leak that can happen. Like, so
I'm wondering how they get to. I'm wondering if this is them going from everyone knows it, but it hasn't been confirmed to confirming it without.
But then
that
goes back to Chris's point, which is then like, then what are we adding? Like, why are we here?
The only reason I can assume they're doing it is, like I said, maybe it's because they want to like do it on the down low and they want to kind of go, we're going to confirm it, but we don't want it to be a thing, so we're just going to sort of mention it in passing.
Why? It still defies any logic, unless.
I mean, I'm doing some legwork to try and help them out, but I'm struggling a bit.
I've fucking
Rockstar's lawyers in the building.
I've cracked the case. I've fucking Detective Pikachu the shit out of this one. It's too much bucks fast, right?
That's it. Too much buck fast. They had a big drinking sesh.
Big drinking session. Didn't know anything better. Fucking buck fast and
they hit the streets of Glasgow. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Well, it's plausible, and it would also be very Scottish of them, which is quite on brand. Even though I can only envisage a situation where this is a game being developed, at least in some small part, by just about every studio Rockstar have on God's green earth. Like, this is going to be one of those games. Like, if we thought the credits were long and
not just Rockstar, dude, probably like every single studio that 2K owns.
Oh yeah. And I will just say, like, we've discussed this before, I genuinely think, as much as it is a cool platform to work from, making or being a senior creative individual in the process of creating Grand Theft Auto 6 must be one of the single most stressful jobs going in entertainment in any way, shape, or form right now. Because, like Chris said, you're making a follow-up to the new entry in the single biggest entertainment franchise or property on planet Earth, within an industry that is known for change and growth and improvement and iteration at its core. In the entire time that video games have been around, they've never been static. And you look at like the jump from especially San Andreas to 4 to 5, like it's one of those things where you go, what does GTA 6 look like? And I'm fucking glad I don't have to answer that question.
I always think as well, though, that we're kind of overstating how in production GTA 6 is. Like, I know we're saying, it's been being made for years. I wonder if it's been more of a slow burn, though, because they're still milking GTA Online. So it's where we go, it's obviously been in the production.
Yeah, it's been in production, but then the houses leave, and then it's like, okay, well, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I reckon they say we're well into production. I'm like, yeah, but I still think it's a fucking long way away, and they've barely broken ground on a number of aspects.
You hear that Menzies is doing everything or everywhere or whatever it's fucking called. And then you kind of think to yourself, well, if fucking Menzies giving it a shot, then maybe we got to reiterate.
Well, then let me jump in and let's introduce Speculation Hour. The SuperShow presents Speculation Hour. If I asked you both, and let Jonesy, maybe I'll start with you, and then Chris jump over to give a completion of production, assuming everything continues to go to plan in terms of a percentage, and then a release date in the form of a year. What would your current gut instinct be, Jonesy?
I would guess at the moment, completion date would be. I'm gonna say it comes out Well, you want 2 separate dates. You want the completion.
No. The first one was a completion like percentage. Like, are they 50% done?
Like currently,
now?
How far are
currently,
they now?
5%.
Oh wow. Okay, I think that's wrong. But go on.
I think it drops in like. I think it comes out in. I'm going to say 2025 or 2020. I want to say 2028, but I'm going to go 2026. Let's say 2026.
Okay.
But 2026 could be one of those cool things where they're like 20, and then the 6 is like fucking.
That would be sick, right?
And not really, because that's so far away.
But then they'll screw up the process, and then it will come out in 2027.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that would be very Rockstar.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say 2026.
Okay. Chris, what are you thinking?
Okay. I'm not sure about the percentage, okay, because that's hard, because I do believe that they probably would get different iterations and then scrap and go forward. And so how do you kind of quantify that, right? Like,
fair point.
Maybe at one point they were at 50%, and now, like, Jonesy could be right. Maybe now they're at 5% because they scrapped 45%.
Maybe
what's happened.
Story and characters are at 90%, while design is at 10, and the map is at 40. And
yeah, I don't know. If you want me to just fucking throw something out there, then let me say, like, I don't know, 35%. But then again, we also got to consider the fucking hockey stick effect, right? Where to make a game, it's almost like the progress is like very minimal until the last year of production, in which case it just kind of fucking spikes. Because you're building up the foundation, you're getting all the stuff ready, and then all of a sudden it's just like, bang, you go.
It's also like they could be well away through pre-production and have done like shitloads of that, which is a huge part of the work, but actually they've only made like a relatively small amount of progress on the actual product, right? That's what I think they're probably at.
Yeah. So, okay. So to the release date, funny enough, I'm with Jonesy on 2025.
Okay.
I've changed. I've 2026, I'm saying. So you're saying 2025. I'm saying 2026.
Yeah. But can I add in some caveats? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's occurred to me as we were discussing it. How do you follow up GTA 5, the most successful fucking entertainment franchise on the planet?
Yeah.
The answer is, how do you follow up the most critically acclaimed FPS shooter on the market?
I'm trying to think what you're talking about.
Half-Life 2. How do you follow up?
Oh, right, 2? I see.
You don't follow it up. Yeah, exactly.
You don't.
What you do is you make an offshoot. Because
right, okay.
So there's no way. So do I think GTA 6 is in development? No. Do I think do I think GTA, a non-numerical entry, is in development? Yes.
Oh wow, like Liberty City Stories kind of vibe.
Oh well, I mean, like Vice City was technically not a main numbered entry, right?
Yeah, it wasn't numbered. I think people treat
because
it
was
as a sequel.
GTA 3, Vice City, GTA 4.
San Andreas in the mix as well.
San Andreas, yeah, exactly.
I feel super weird about not saying just because they weren't numbered, they're not part of the main releases. Like, I'm like, yeah, they were. Like,
I think I agree with Jonesy in that I consider Vice City and San Andreas to be sequels in a full sense, but I also know what Chris means in that, like, there is something weirdly smart about the Half-Life Alyx style move of just circumventing that conversation altogether.
Yeah.
That's an
it's the
interesting
Assassin's
idea.
Creed thing, right? It's like saying Assassin's Creed, only the numbered ones are official Assassin's Creed games. I'm like, no.
Well, the other thing about that is, and this is true for Vice City and San Andreas with regards to 3, and Brotherhood and Revelations with regard to Assassin's Creed 2, which is that they were fundamentally built on the same engine, the same principles and stuff like that, and nothing shifted that much.
In their announcement, didn't they say that they're looking to kind of... Fuck, you see, I'm kind of confusing so many announcements at the same time.
So, Arda, can I have a question for you then?
Hold
Do you consider...
Was it GTA 6 that or the next GTA, where they had mentioned that they are always looking to like the next iteration of the engine or some shit like that?
I don't think they use the word engine, but there was wording in there which is like basically the quote is, "With every new project, our goal is always to significantly move beyond what we've previously delivered. We're pleased to confirm that active development of the next entry is underway."
I stand by it. I think we're going to get like a Grand Theft Alyx.
Oh, but if what you're using as a measuring stick is to say that Vice City and San Andreas weren't numbered of entries, but we're going to get something on the caliber of one of those, how they followed on from the games that they immediately preceded them, I'm fine with that. Like I don't need it to be six.
Sure.
I'm perfectly happy with a Vice City for the modern age or a San Andreas. Like those games were just as good as like any other numbered entries in my mind.
I've got a question for you guys. What if the next main entry in Grand Theft Auto is like just purely straight out the gate, GTA Online 2?
Hell no. I'd be so unhappy.
You see, you say hell no. You say hell no. But half the fucking planet is like, hell yes.
Yeah, children everywhere who want to drive around in cars and
children don't spend hundreds of millions of dollars on games like that.
Sometimes they do.
They help, but they can't do that alone. For as much as we, for as much, no, yeah, he's I was going to say, for as much as we like the anecdote about the child stealing the parent's credit card, that's not how you make games and service games that generate hundreds of millions of dollars on it, like 9 years in a row. Like,
a bunch of online gelds who want to sink all their money. They want to be your.
It's us. Like we're the gelds. Not in the case of GTA Online, but collectively we're the gelds. I will say just before we move on that I may be, and I don't know why, I think I'm slightly more optimistic than you guys when it comes to a release date. And my thought is, I think 2024.
No, it's ballpark, right?
That is punchy. That is punchy.
No, the reason is I think that, again, whilst I don't think that this tweet was necessarily the start of the promotional campaign, as we've established it would be too strange and unhelpful almost to start to a promotional campaign, I still don't think you say something like this apropos of nothing unless you know you're going to bring it up again soon. Like, this is like, if you don't think you've got something to say again for like a year or 2 years, why tweet this now? You could tweet it in June. You could tweet it it has the exact same impact. Okay, so my thinking is that they have something to say about it again in the next. I think they'll mention this game again in the next year, and I think if they mention it in the next year, I think they can pitch it for either 2023 that then gets delayed into 24, or just straight up 24.
Okay, can I give you two creases in your panties?
You crease me up, baby.
Okay, the first thing that's going to get you hot and creased is Bethesda saying, hey, here's Starfield, and here's Elder Scrolls 6.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
And prior to that, and to be fair, the industry has vastly moved on since this next point, but the first trailer for Cyberpunk 2077. The first one, the very first one.
Okay,
which is like 11, 12 years ago.
But in both, I think in both cases, Bethesda with Starfield and CD Projekt Red with The Witcher.
Yeah.
No, I was going in both cases. The studios announced those games, but were also clear on what they had to make first, and then went off and made those.
Sure.
I think the key thing about the Rockstar wording is, again, it's frustrating that the wording is different in two different places, but there is wording out there written by Rockstar that describes development on this video game as well underway. And I just think the idea, for a 2026 release, that means from this point, you guys don't even think we're even going to get like a trailer or a promotional image or a logo for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, because we'll get Bully 2 first.
See, that is an interesting asterisk, is that the Bully 2 story that seems to rear up its head every 6 months has done so again recently, and there are some fairly knowledgeable people who seem pretty convinced that Bully 2 exists in some way, shape, or form. But then, like you mentioned already, Chris, it's been started and delayed and in some cases like scrapped entirely. I think maybe twice now. In which case, like, who knows who's got what information and how old that information is, but.
The one thing that makes me think it's going to be a lot further off than I think you're thinking is just think about like what games were supposed to come out in 2020 and then got bumped like 18 months, a year, 2 years.
Yeah, but Jonesy, you're saying that it's going to be 4 years until a game that's well underway is out.
It's also because
your friend references things of 18. But Rockstar have the pandemic's been going on for 2 years. There's no adjustment period.
No, I'm saying to Jonesy that those delays would have happened because of this unprecedented event, rather than
absolutely. Some of them were affected by that, but I don't think we're done with that yet. I don't think we're done with like the weirdness in the industry yet. The issue that companies are having around hiring and stuff. There's a lot of just uncertainty, and I think maybe they try and get it out 2025, but it gets delayed. Like, I think we'll see it. I'm not saying they'll say it's going to release 2026. I think we'll see it in 2026. The aim could be earlier and may well be earlier, but I don't think we will see it until 2026.
Well, so you say like 2026 is going to be like the first time we see a trailer or something?
No. It will get released in 2026. Oh, yeah. I'm saying, like, even if if they say it's coming out 2024, it won't come out 2024. It'll get delayed until 2026. That's when we're going to see this game.
Yeah. I can't. That's possible.
I think if I was an executive at Take-Two and I just sat down in a meeting room and a Rockstar, representative had told me that, I'd said, right, who's around to make a GTA 4 remastered? Because we need to get something out ASAP.
Hey, I think have we
given up on that Red Dead remaster yet? Where's that at? Can we get that thing out there?
The thing with at the moment with like Rockstar is they can milk the online stuff. They're still making money off the online. So it's not like they need to rush out another game.
No, they don't need to. But then also, again, like with the recent financials, there was the remastered or the definitive edition, I should say, of the trilogy sold
like 10 million?
10 million copies is the word. Which again for a game that was fundamentally broken in some respects and had a horrible, I mean, it was torn apart by the general public and us here on this podcast, and for it to sell 10. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that's an easy Christmas gift to get people not just up and down the country, but around the world.
Shows how much of like an echo chamber a lot we're in when it comes to how little knowledge we have of the wider gaming public who just like go out and buy shit and they don't comment, they don't look at other shit, they just go and buy games.
Yeah, well,
I feel like we've all got that where we have like friends who are tuned into the games industry in different degrees, and it's always interesting to hear what they ask you about and what they don't ask you about. Like I've mentioned before, my Warzone/FIFA group, who they all asked me about the Activision acquisition, and we had a big conversation about that. And because we talked about that, I thought they might be interested in the Bungie story, and I mentioned it, and it was just silence. Like,
no idea. One thing you brought up that I'd forgotten about is that might push them to bring it forward from when I said, but I'm going to stick with 2026. But is the failure of Red Dead Online. Because that's a hole in their finances that obviously they must have done a calculation where they go, GTA Online makes us this much, it's going to decrease this much year on year. Red Dead Online is going to come and bolster some of that, and so then to get completely to get wiped out like how Online did with Red Dead, it must leave a bit of a hole where they're thinking maybe we need to make more shit happen. But then, like you said, they just sold 10 million copies of that shitty remaster that they outsourced to someone else that probably cost
also
them
like
to make.
Like GTA 5 sold another 5. It's on like 160 million now. Like I don't think a company that sells 160 million copies of a single game has quote unquote holes in any part of their finances or accounting.
I bet they do. They must do, right? Because they still do financial projections, and at some point they're going to be a bit of a gap in.
Sure. So. But like again, you have projections, but I don't think anyone projects to release a single game and 9 years later still have it be not just one of the best selling games of all time, but actively one of the best selling games on any platform at any point in time.
It's like planning for a viral video. It's like planning your company around one viral video.
Yeah, and you keep saying to yourself, one day this video is just going to die. The algorithm's going to give up on it, and it will stop doing millions of views. And for GTA 5, it just hasn't happened.
Keeps on chugging.
Anyway. Yeah. Well, sorry, Jonesy.
What do you guys think it will? Do you any ideas as to what you think it will be, or like the setting or anything like that? Like if you had to guess.
I think it's a return to Vice City.
Yeah, I think that sounds sensible.
So, like Vice City specifically, or are we saying like the time frame from the Vice City? Or are we saying like more modern Vice City?
I mean, there have been rumors of both simultaneously. A story that transcends and goes back and forth and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it'll take place in Vice City, but time frame, who knows? But yeah, I mean, like, they'll be pretty sick if it jumps around. And you're talking about like families, and it's kind of like, you play as the son, but then you go back in time and you play as the dad when he was that age, and that could be pretty cool.
The only other thing I kind of have, and we touched on this before on the podcast, and it's a mini prediction, I guess, because it doesn't speak too much about what the game will necessarily be about. It's more of a tonal sort of idea. But we talked about before that, like, especially with the GTA series, Rockstar love to make satirical takes of the settings of their games, or what those settings are based on in real life, or have pastiches of certain genres, or movie stereotypes, or people from the real world that are kind of like satirized in character form. And that I think they move away from some of that stuff we've talked about before. Like, okay, what does when the world is the way it is, when Donald Trump is president, when Mark Zuckerberg is like looks like an alien and renames Facebook Meta and wants to sort the end the metaverse and go to office meetings with headsets on, like there's that adage, isn't there, that the world is so much of the world is becoming the kind of shit that the Rockstar would have joked about, that the houses would have joked about 10, 15, 20 years ago, that it's almost, there's not much room to satirize anything there. And I can see them shifting away from that and doing almost more of a Red Dead Redemption 2 style story of like it's very character driven crime tale with less emphasis on the traditional comedic elements that have made up the wider GTA universe.
That would suck. I would love it if you got into a GTA 6 and it was like it was set in like a city, modern day, where there was like a fake Donald Trump and there was mission stretches where it's
so you're talking about Saints Row.
Zuckerberg. Yeah, that's the problem. It gets too close to Saints Row, but it would be great if there was like a MAGA protests on the streets.
What about this,
and
fellas?
you've got to like drive your car not through them, but like trying to navigate all that sort of shit and be like, what are these people doing? That would be well funny.
What about this? Okay, as like a final, because we definitely need to move on from this. But what about this as the final kind of thought? Okay, if you had, let's say, GTA 3, which was kind of like the generic kind of city, whatever. Then you had Vice City, which was like Miami. Right. You had Liberty City, which is like New York style.
Yeah.
Okay. You got San Andreas, which is like California, I'd imagine. Like if you're going to a new place that's a fictional take on a state in the United States, like where would you go? And like, yeah, maybe Jonesy's right. Maybe the satire comes from politics, and maybe it's like a Washington DC style.
Maybe
setting.
Maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man.
I think
I like the idea of like a San Francisco or something like that.
San Francisco was technically in San Andreas, the original PS2 one, because it was called San Fierro. Do you remember?
Right.
We had San Fierro, Los Santos, and Las Venturas, which was Vegas. Yeah. And then GTA 5 did the thing where they just focused on Los Santos and made it like 15 times the size.
Yeah. Or maybe they do the Vegas thing then.
You could do Vegas. I think there's also, it maybe doesn't work quite as well in the global sense. I don't think as many people outside of the US are as tuned into it. But you hear a lot of stories about certain cities, for example, in Texas, like Austin, where there's kind of like the sort of the disparity between the way the city's side of things has changed and how that contrasts against the traditional image of Texas, and sort of how the gentrification of those parts of that state have kind of
or you could do like a Detroit in that kind of aspect.
You could do Detroit, Atlanta, places like that, and they have nice ties to like, again, the kind of things that houses have taken inspiration. Well, I was going to soften it and say that, like, the houses knew exactly what they were doing with the story and the tone of San Andreas, for example. Yeah, that was that was their Boys in the Hood. That was their Menace to Society kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now you just like replace NWA with Outkast, I guess, and you've got a game.
I'm still convinced that they need to do like what was the film?
I thought you were going to say underwater GTA for a second. There, I was like, okay.
No. Is it the I can't remember the name. It was a remake of a fucking hell,
Undercover Brother.
Where you have a cop, and you have the criminal, and then
The Departed.
Undercover. The Departed. So I like the idea of a GTA where you are in the police as like a an undercover criminal, and then you're a criminal as well.
Oh, Donnie Brasco style.
Yeah, kind of.
And the lines
and then you can
blur.
And you can jump between the two characters. That might be cool if you're playing the guy.
Jamie,
if you're almost trying to catch yourself or whatever.
Jamie, do you know who Donnie Brasco is?
It's a film.
Do you know about? Have you seen the film? Do you know about
it's Al Pacino.
Good film.
No,
it's Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Is Al Pacino in it?
Oh, he might be in it actually. Yeah,
he is in it.
Yeah,
he's the guy. He's the guy who vouches for him because he's the one. It's a forgazing. It's a forgazing.
I gotta go watch that film again, man. That and Carlito's Way. I gotta go watch this film.
Yeah, that's what Sleeping Dogs was, where basically he's an undercover cop in Hong Kong, And as you've said, Chris, unsurprisingly, the lines do inevitably get blurred. Go figure. Anyway, maybe that's a little opportunity for us to throw it over to you, the audience, and ask if you have any ideas for what you would do with a GTA 6 or a GTA game in general, or what you'd like to see Rockstar do next. Let us know in the comments down below or on social media.
GTA ATG.
GTA
ATG.
Okay, we're on something there. See, you press up on the D-pad and it swaps from one of us to the other, and you get to see exactly what we're doing. Jonesy wanders around the nomad part of the map in his underwear, drunk, and he's best friends with a juggalo. It's
it's just my life.
I mean, he is the prepper amongst us. So
I live my life. What can I say?
There you go. Writes itself. Do you know what else?
Do you know what I bought the other day?
Another reflex bow.
Something like rehydratable food, like a thing that you. Like it's like a 1 square inch cube, and you pour 10 milliliters of water on it. It turns into 3,000 crackers.
Goat hooves that you put on your.
I'll give you a clue.
No, okay.
I'm gonna be able to find some treasure with it.
Metal detector.
Metal detector.
Metal detector.
You are such an old man, bro.
I'm taking the kids to the beach for a little cheeky holiday, and thought it'd be funny to get a little cheap metal detector so they can have a little scan on the beach and see if they can find like someone's dropped some change or something. They'll be loving it.
Fair. That's cool for kids, man.
Yeah, I did always want to do that growing up. Do you know what else I wanted to do always growing up? Was I wanted to write a comment so good that the channel in question would choose it as a comment of the week.
I like it.
And that is an honour we have chosen to bestow to some of our audience this week. This one in particular caught our eye. It's from Maxday2808. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that exactly correctly, but to be honest, once you hear the comment in question, it might not matter. Because they said, what happened to all-time gaming? Haven't been here in years. Didn't know they changed their name and their views. Went downhill. Interesting, like I've read that as the punctuation would suggest it's meant to be read. Another alternate reading could be they changed their name, pause, and their views, went downhill.
Yeah.
But I like the reading of they changed their name and their views, as though like we intentionally manipulated our views to be a mere fraction of what they used to be. Chris, what happened to all-time gaming? Haven't been here in years.
Oh man, fucking hell. Yeah, well, first of all,
2808 wants to know.
I love that. Thank you for your comment to begin with, and thank you for the I don't think we've had this bad a burn in our comments in a very long time.
Went downhill,
which is fair. Yeah, changed the name, went downhill.
Change the name, change their views.
I also like the fact that he hasn't realized that it's actually a completely separate channel.
No, I like that he likes the idea that we just somehow lost like over 350,000 subscribers. Just people just kept drifting away in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
To be fair, that would be impressive. Outside of being like cancelled officially, just losing that many subscribers would be impressive.
Well,
it would be incredibly impressive.
Fucking hell, you guys say that, right? But hold on a second.
We can get a live sub count here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, let's do it. Let's roll back the years.
Okay. What?
Okay.
Oh no, subs.
I thought you'd stumbled on something remarkable there.
No, I thought I did, but I'm just being an idiot. Okay, so All Time Gaming as a channel still exists. There's nothing on it because it's all been put private, not our decision. So just gonna put that out there. Still has 381,000 subscribers.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean this is what a lot of people I'm sure people know this nowadays, but the subscriber count doesn't mean anything. If the views aren't there, subscribers are irrelevant because if they're dead accounts,
it's a channel.
Who cares?
It's a channel that hasn't had any content on its page for like the better half of 2 years. Like, of course, subs don't count.
No, but you know, people would still. You could like we've said this before. If we could go back to having that channel now versus like SuperShow, I'd be like, what's the point? You're not going to get any views, even if we could turn all those videos back on. I don't think we're going to watch anything.
I tend to disagree entirely on that one, but yeah, I'm not going to get into it. Like if I could flip on a dime now, I'd go back to ATG and try and build it from scratch for sure.
Oh, okay. Build it from scratch.
Wait, do you mean build it from scratch, or build it from 380k scratch?
From 380k scratch and like bring back the old content, but then just be like,
you don't think any of the kind of traditional...
That's the line in the sand. Now we're going again.
don't think any of the traditional sort of talk about subscriber baggage and how like having lapsed or dead subscribers is worse for a channel than having no subscribers applies to that situation, or
it's entirely possible. Like, who the fuck knows? With I believe that not even YouTube fucking knows how the algorithm works. It's almost like the fucking lawnmower man at this point, right? Like, he's just fucking his own entity and he does whatever the fuck he wants. And then Susan's there just fucking having a meltdown talking about NFTs and shit. But no, I think like, fuck it, whether it's successful or not, like it would be such an interesting thing to attempt. And
there's something to be said for
it.
There's something to be said for having access to the subscription feed of, I don't know how many of those accounts are still live. Even let's say 10,000 of those accounts are still live. You drop a video, people see it.
Well, here's the thing, Jonesy. Here's the thing.
Maybe, you know.
Just keep this in mind before you continue. Sorry to interrupt you, but here's the thing. When we're running ATG, we know that YouTube does periodic purges of dead accounts from your channels. Like, we know that this is a thing that happens periodically. So in theory, with what we know, unless something has fundamentally changed, 381,000 subscribers are still actively using YouTube in some capacity.
But when I say dead, I mean like it could be someone who literally goes on YouTube like twice every month.
Yeah,
and they don't even check
possible.
The subscriber thing.
And
so they're kind of keeping it
and the hypothetical here would be, as soon as you create one piece of new content, because it's like the way the algorithm should work is it's almost like, hey, here's this creator that you used to watch a lot of their videos. They've just posted something new. So the impressions on that video would probably be really high. But the danger, and this is probably what would happen, is you get all of these new eyeballs on people who are saying, I don't want this. Like 381,000 subscribers, they're not staying around in the hopes of anything. They've forgotten. And as soon as you put something in front of them and say, hey,
while we were making stuff.
They did. The vast majority,
Yeah, I know.
It's impressive they didn't unsubscribe just because stuff popped up in the subscriber feed and they were like, get out of here.
But honestly, if I was ever given the opportunity, I would definitely, like, even if it's just as like a pet side project, like, I'd just be so fascinated with, like, we've taken a channel from 0 to like almost 500,000 subscribers. We've gone through that journey. It would be so interesting to be on the other side of that kind of thing and just kind of
take a channel from 500,000 subscribers to
and
0.
take it back down to 0, baby. Hell yeah, crash and burn. Let's fucking go.
I mean, according to MaxDay2808, we've kind of already done that, right? Because we changed our name and changed our views, and went
I suppose
downhill.
we haven't really answered the question. The really quick like answer, I suppose, to MaxDay2808 would be we used to be a company and now we're not a company anymore, and they used to pay for us to make content and now they don't. So we start our own channel and we have the time to do a podcast a week, and that's
exactly it. We're carrying on with our lives, and this is the hobby that we are, that keeps us together, because even when ATG ended, we always knew we still wanted to do something together, and this was I'm not going to say the easiest thing, because it's not easy running a podcast and kind of scheduling 3 people's like time to coordinate and edit a 2-hour plus podcast a week. But like it was the path of least resistance in terms of getting something done and working together, right?
Yes. And I will just say, one of the things that helps make it easier as we continue to produce podcast after podcast, week after week, is the support of our patrons, because that is one thing we do now have as the Super Show, which is your support and your pledges, which help us keep going, which help us keep coming back here week after week and recording something. And you know what? Even if we do forget or somehow lose the last 20 minutes of the video version of the podcast, it adds to the conversation. We're giving you guys stuff to talk about. And hopefully that's what you're along on the journey for, is the mystery, the intrigue.
Yeah.
And I will just say, if you are potentially interested in helping us out via the means of Patreon, then you can head over to patreon.com/supershow, and you can pledge as much or as little as you'd like to help us keep going and keep producing the content that we're making so far. There are, of course, rewards, though, that await you at certain tiers. For example, if you decided to pledge $2 a month, you could jump into our Discord and start chatting with us and the rest of the community. If you pledge $5 a month, you could start getting access to Patreon-exclusive content. We have different podcasts there. We have Patreon-exclusive podcasts. We have little behind-the-scenes looks. We have planned, pilots from channels gone by, one of which we just spent a good chunk of time talking about, that you can still watch if you want to relive some of the ATG glory days that weren't actually glorious enough to be the part of the glory days because they never went live during the glory days.
Okay.
Glory Dayception. Anyway, we would also like to take the moment, though, to thank some of the people who are already pledging to us on Patreon and already helping us keep making the Super Show possible. Particular shout-outs this week, though, to Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy, Helium Joker, Jesper Camdal Nielsen, Mark Clancy is an absolute geld, agreed, Mr. Anthropic, Nathan Pears, Pastors Guild, Scary Omen, Starfall Kid, and the top dogs, the big boys, Brett Z, Doppler, Geometric Potter, Hacksaw Book Read, Manuel Guerrero, Peaswad, and The Uncaged. Thank you all so much for helping us out.
Yeah.
And no matter what you
Thank
think
you,
about
guys.
the way we changed our name, and the way we changed our views, and whether we're going downhill or uphill, you're here with us on that journey. And if we're going downhill, we're going downhill together, right, gang?
Fucking crash and burn. Can I just say something? I don't know who Mark Clancy is that he's referring to, but if you just type in Mark Clancy on Google and just click on images, if you look at like all of these faces, just do it now. It's a little bit of a thought experiment. Well, less than a thought experiment, but each and every single one of these people in this picture looks like they could be a geld.
You might be one of these pictures might be of the person who's pledging to us on Patreon.
Well, then he just called himself a geld, in which case I'm agreeing.
Do you know what? There are some actual gelds here. I think there's one particular one who's giving me real Raoul Moat vibes as well. Like
Raoul.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
For anyone that's not aware of is it obscure, potentially obscure British cultural references, go and look at Raoul Moat's Wikipedia page and grab a tub of greasy popcorn because you're in for a treat.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
baby. Move on.
Yes.
What I'm asking, Jonesy, is did you get where he was coming from at least?
Not really.
Okay. Jonesy.
Not my bag.
Not known for your empathy.
Not a Raoul Moat fan.
Well, are you a fan of video games, if nothing else?
I am a fan
Stop
of video
typing.
games.
You're on a podcast. What are you doing? You looking up more versions? What else are you searching after Mark Clancy?
It was Mark Clancy Deloitte came up when I typed in. So I was like, who's Mark Clancy at Deloitte? So I was checking.
What's Deloitte?
The company, the big massive company.
Yeah, like consultancy firm. So basically, Jonesy's just logged onto LinkedIn now.
Yeah,
it's just on Google.
I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast up to this point because we've now lost Jonesy as he'll continue to spend the next hour trying to look like he's not secretly trying to find out the real identity of Mark Clancy the Geld.
I'm back on the foot thing.
Either that, or he has now opened up Raoul Moat's Wikipedia page and
he's getting lost down there. Yeah,
he's going on a walk down memory lane.
I'm on the foot. What is it? Foot.
WikiFeet.
WikiFeet. Is it WikiFeet?
Are you looking at Mark Clancy's WikiFeet?
WikiFeet. No, just feet.
Just feet in general. Okay.
It wasn't WikiFeet, was it?
Well, Chris.
Oh, it was WikiFeet. No, just
it was WikiFeet.
It was WikiFeet.
Well, Mark Clancy is not going to be on WikiFeet. Chris might be after that.
Holly Willoughby is on WikiFeet. Her feet aren't even in half these pictures.
Is Raoul Moat on WikiFeet?
I'll type it in.
Okay, let's do it.
No, let's not. Let's just. God, this is going to be like a 5-hour podcast at this rate.
Nah, Raoul Moat. There's no Raoul Moat in WikiFeet.
That's a shame. Well, you know what? I think maybe it's for the best that Raoul Moat's life and actions are not particularly glorified. He was a man who clearly felt like he needed to seek revenge for one reason or other, and there's nothing noble about that, unless you do it through the means of kung fu, or so I've heard, Chris, because another revenge tale hit store shelves this week, digital and physical, or maybe just digital, probably just digital, and I believe you have been able to get your hands on a little bit of action, courtesy of Sifu. I don't know if it's actually how you.
Well, in the game they say Sifu. Although I always heard from a Chinese person that it should be Shifu, but whatever, like seafood. Okay, I love seafood. Prawns.
You went down to pick up a local
calamari.
chow mein. You were like, "While I'm here, how would you pronounce this?"
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. So I got a pre-release code, and I was all excited, and I was going to stream it this Sunday past because Sunday was the embargo day.
Yes.
All geared up for that, and a little bit of a family mishap. My wife broke her finger, and there was had to take her to like A&E and blah blah blah, fracture clinic, etc. She's on the mend, but as a result, I wasn't able to stream then. And then I had a business trip to go on Monday. I only got back yesterday, so it's just been no time. What I did manage to do, though, was play Sifu on my own on a train up to Manchester. Feeling a bit motion sickness with the train fucking going and trying to do all these kung fu moves. But man, Sifu's fucking legit, boys. It looks legit.
So fucking cool.
You know what? It's a power fantasy. It just the game makes you feel good without you actually being good. And if you are good, then holy shit, you feel on fire.
So, Chris, you don't get to call a game a power fantasy just because it lets you relive your 20s, bro. Like, just put it to bed once and for all. We're past it.
Tell me about it. How I wish I could go back, Jamie. No, but like the game is solid. The action is solid. The story's really interesting. The fucking soundtrack slaps. Like, it's a £32. I don't know how much it is in dollars, but like it's not a full price game. It's not a long game either. There is that caveat. Like I played for about an hour and a half, and maybe I'm 1/5 through the game.
Did you beat the boss at the end of the dude with the machete who makes all the plants?
Exactly. Yeah. I did that, and I did a little bit of the club, which is the next.
Yeah, seems like there's a big jump, like from the opening level and that first boss up to the boss of the club, and certainly the last couple of bits of the club seem quite tough.
So I'd like to imagine that maybe I'm a third way through the club.
Okay, nice. Sure.
But yeah, the other thing to mention is because I was traveling on a train on my laptop, I was doing it mouse and keyboard, and I think that game is probably set up more for controller. Like mouse and keyboard is fine, but like some of the mapping is weird. If I could be bothered to stick with it and kind of stick with mouse and keyboard, that is not the game. I'm definitely going to stick with the game. But sort out the mouse and keyboard, I'd probably remap the keys to something that's a little bit more logical for me.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick example. So using your WASDs to like move around, and then X is your finisher move, which is below the WASD. So it's very unnatural to kind of go to it and just kind of like messes me about. I do have one criticism of the game though, and that is the camera angle, or how can I put this? The camera is too close to your dude.
Yeah.
Like, if there was some option for a slider, I'm not saying you have to be like all the way fucking out, but I just felt like it's just that little bit too close that like, I'd want to know maybe what's happening a bit more around you.
That's the single like most complaint I've heard across various reviews now is that inconsistencies with the camera.
Yeah.
It's a weird one because like, I think you'd maybe lose a little bit of the cinematography if you could adjust that too much. I think because the game is obviously very cinematic and is really trying to push like a visual style.
That's what I'm saying. Like just a little bit, just like
eke it out a touch.
Yeah,
or just being better at reacting to when it's put in awkward spots. Like I've seen at times where people are almost backed into a corner, and because the camera doesn't really know where to go and kind of get smushed into the wall, and that's where I've seen it look a little bit awkward.
On the other hand, though, you got to think to yourself that like it's going to sound stupid, but if you are in a brawl in a club, you aren't going to know what's behind you. Right.
True.
So maybe that's what they're trying to emulate in terms of they're like kind of unknown and then trying to be aware that there is dangers that you can't see behind you. But even so, I think if they just manage to eke it, like Jonesy said, if they just eke it out just a little bit further back, just a touch, it just feels a little bit more comfortable. Right now, it feels a bit claustrophobic.
It's worth noting as well that you have not got to the point in the story where the talking head of a decapitated man gets attached to your belt. He's got a Scottish accent, and he starts telling you when people are behind you and when you need to.
Yeah, no, I'm still trying to climb that mountain. So.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Yeah.
I do think maybe that's slightly easier because I've been playing it on PlayStation 5, and the first thing I did was crank the camera sensitivity up so that I can whip the camera around. Like, so as soon as you've like dispatched one foe, you can quickly whip it round.
Well, I mean, mouse and keyboard, Jonesy, like there's about as much control as you could possibly want.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
Right, like the movement of the camera is not the issue. It's the placement. And it's funny that Jamie, you said like the God of War comparison, but God of War had like the perfect kind of thing. Like Kratos was still very much the big presence in the frame, but at no point necessarily did I feel that it was too claustrophobic. Maybe because they had like fucking danger indicators, which you don't necessarily have in Sifu.
Maybe.
God of War was super dynamic as well, if I remember rightly. Like they had times when the camera would pull out, so you could see a lot more, and there were times when it pushed like really close in. Like they knew, like they had gone through like it felt like they'd gone through that whole game and put the camera like the best position, like you need it in for any situation.
Well, like there's that one scene in the trailer, and there's fucking I got the biggest grin on my face when it happened in game when it just kind of goes to that side-on corridor view from like fucking Old Boy. And it's just like this is fucking inspired.
Bro,
this is like
God,
it's Old Boy, and it's that. What's that? The Daredevil as well. They did that.
It's just Old Boy.
No, but then they did the homage to it in Daredevil, didn't they?
Yeah, but
in a way,
but it's just Old Boy. So
sorry, okay, it's just Old Boy.
Yeah, well, and actually, another gripe. I was a little bit disappointed that that corridor scene didn't carry on, because I think what was really nice about the Old Boy scene is just how it just kept on going. Like you kind of think like, oh, okay, it's done, and then it just kind of like kept going. So it would have been good to them, but maybe because it was so close to the start of the game, they just felt like, hey, you just got to do this. But yeah, like there's cool shit in that game, man. And like I've read some like middling reviews on it, and I don't necessarily agree. You know, especially in terms of like the difficulty in understanding the different kind of mechanics or the stumbling blocks that the mechanics kind of put in your way. I just feel that like some of the reviews just didn't get it. See, review. But yeah, I think it's an exceptional game, and I think for a team like Slow Clap to get to where they've gotten with this, they're fucking phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. How
far have you got with it, Jonesy?
So it's really hard to give like a percentage, because like Chris was saying, it's the way the whole game is set up is quite a weird.
Well, ignoring like ages and stuff like that, like which
level?
I'm
saying that's the only way I can gauge.
Which stage
it.
have you got to?
I've got to level 2, the club.
Right.
But I haven't reached the boss in the club either. But one thing I've done, which is why I said it's quite hard to gauge, is because there's no point in trying to progress past, say, for example, the club, if you go to the club when you're already too old, that you know that you're going to struggle with the rest of the game. It would almost feel like a false economy. Even if you managed to beat the boss in the club, I feel like you'd think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Do you see what I mean? Like, so I've gotten to a weird thing. I reckon I've played it for about 3 hours or so far, and I've probably played the first level like 5 or 6 times. Because one thing the game does have, which is the unlock mechanic, is you can unlock a skill you unlock it so you can utilize it, but you will lose it upon death.
Yeah.
But one thing you can do is if you pump in if you unlock it like 5 times within that round under a certain age, you can keep that skill for the rest of the game. Like you don't lose it when you die. So one thing I've done is I've replayed the first level and the club multiple times, got my XP right up, and I've unlocked skills permanently. So I haven't been playing it trying to progress the story. Because I've played the first level and I played like half through the second level, and I'm like, right, I'm too old by this point. Like,
what was the oldest that you got?
I think I was 40 when I left the. Oh, geez. The youngest I've done the first level was 40.
Wow.
And okay. Right, because that was a part of the game structure that I wasn't aware of until it released, which is that I think we all knew just from the trailers and the coverage beforehand that you would die and you would go up in age. What wasn't made clear until the game released was that the age you are when you complete a stage and move on to another stage is essentially saved, and it retains your lowest age you've ever reached that stage at, and that's the age you will be whenever you go there. So it's like one of those things where, like Jonesy said, if you complete the first level and you're 60, you can go and do the club at 60, but your time is actually better spent trying to get out of the first stage as close to 20 as you can.
Well, it depends on what you want to do, right? Because obviously the older you get, the stronger you get, but the less health you get.
Yeah.
So you could, if you want to go as like a glass cannon build, then you do the first stage, just die over and over again to get like really old. Yeah. And then just like that would be the challenge.
There was an interesting conversation I was overhearing about speedrunners, and like if we get to the point where people can complete Sifu without getting hit, our run's faster if you intentionally die 10 times at the beginning of a run.
Probably.
Oh, interesting, because you're like tough.
Then get to be like 64 and then complete the game without getting touched.
But the issue with that is there are age gated skills, and there are age gated.
Yes, true.
When you get to certain little like I don't know what they call them, like monument things that you can utilize. You can only up your health, your like resilience, and something else I can't remember. If you're under a certain age. Structure to resilience I was talking about. Okay. There's another one, I can't remember what it is, but you can only
it's like weapon durability is one of them.
Weapon durability, thank you. But you've got to be like certain ages in order to do some of that stuff and you get to certain levels. So the thing I found is because I did the first level and I unlocked shortcuts are like a big thing in this, like they are in like, you know, a Soulsborne or whatever. So you can do the run on the first level, then you get a set of keys, which mean that you can open a door to the warehouse, which means you cut out a huge chunk of the level. But then I was trying to get I'm missing something from that level, so I was trying to run through it. So I did it like 4 or 5 times, trying to find the thing I'd missed, and I can't find the thing. So I'm like, okay, it must be in a later level that you find it, and then you can come back and open a door in the first level. So I haven't tried to progress really. I've just been replaying the first couple of levels, and what I really do like about it, and I've never had this with like a roguelike or a roguelite or whatever you want to like call them. I know this isn't specifically one of those, but I've really enjoyed replaying certain sections, and you know exactly how to take out a certain person.
That's because the gameplay's so good, and it's like
it is good. It is so good,
and it feels like that's I was going to say that's like the impetus, right? It's like martial arts is a thing you learn and you study and you perfect.
You feel like you are like in this game, because it's all the same, and you come across the same people in the same situation. It really does feel like it's you getting better. And you can see that it's you getting better. And even when you like cheese it and you get like get XP and then you unlock something permanently, because those skills you unlock are simple little things. Like it might be an extra move here, or it might be a different type of kick, or it might be like a hook kick or something. That's not something that means you're just going to win. Like it's not
because you still have to memorize that fucking combo.
Well, no, but even if you can memorize the combo, they're usually simple things that they might change a fight a little bit. Like you can do like a sweep kick or something. And you can knock someone over, but that just gives you a little bit more time to then fight someone else. Yeah. There's also things that I'm still learning, like get in a fight and then run away and jump over a couple of tables, and then you reposition the whole fight, and then you sort of stretch the enemies out. So there's often occasions where you're against like 7 people, and it's rough. And when you first do that fight, you'll be like, okay, I'm getting battered here. I've lost like 5 lives or something. But then by the time you've done it 3 times, you're like, oh, I slide over this table. Then I grab the metal pole that's behind me, and then I donk 3 people on the nog, and then you slide over something else, and then you like fight this guy one-on-one, and you really can plan your fights. And it's a very cool game, and I'm super excited about sort of playing more of it and unlocking some more stuff. But some of those, man, the boss, I can get to the first boss at like age 23. I think it's the best I've done it, and then he like did me for. Because in case people don't know, there's a weird thing, the death counter. So the first time you die, you only lose 1 life. The second time you die, you'll lose 2 lives, but then it goes up and up and up. So you can get to a point where 1 death, not lives, age, like years of life.
Yeah.
So you might die once, yet you might lose 9 years of life. And then when you're in your 70s, you can't come back.
They refer to it as the death counter.
The death counter, yeah. So you might get to, like, I got to the first boss, say like age 23, and he killed me once, then he killed me again. Suddenly I'm like 40.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've only died like 4 or 5 times to this guy, but I've lost that many years of life. Yeah. So by the time I get to the second level,
like a fucking Fibonacci sequence. But you can reduce the death counter by killing other like mini bosses, main bosses. So if you've got a death counter of like, say you've died 3 times, so your death count is 3. You can bring that down to 2 by killing one of those dudes. Yeah.
You even get the option to fight some of those people. Like the first level, there's an example where there's a room off to one side and there are 2 guys in it who are guys who reduce your death count. So if you kill both of those guys, you can knock it back. But you obviously, if you don't need to fight them guys, you can run past that room and you don't need to engage them. It's a sick game. I am, as someone who rushes in, as you guys well know, I've found it rough on like difficulty. Because I don't defend, I don't try, and I just attack like flat out, and I think I do need to bide my time a bit more. But
I'm torn on this one. Like I like Returnal last year was a similar situation where I was unsure. I jumped in and I was glad to do it, but for some reason there's something about Sifu that I'm thinking, do you know what, I might just, especially with the amount of games coming out and how much we've all got to play right now, I'm going to take a step back. And my litmus test is looking at guys, basically regular gamers like you two, who I can see something of myself in terms of the way we play, and see, okay, how many people actually complete this game, and how many people, put it bluntly, hit a wall and can't or don't progress. And that will influence my purchasing decision, I think.
I think it feels imminently completable, despite how like difficult it can be. If you understand how the flow of the game needs to go, I think you can. I don't think there's any issues.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to picking up this thread this time next week.
The only thing against me at the moment is time. But if I have time to play, I will play.
Yeah,
I do think I can see why you'd say that, Jamie, about like how difficult it hit the wall. I do think the way that it works though, because you can hit a level again and again and again, you can get your age down to like a decent level. Then at least when you go to the next level, you can do it again and again and again, and then you can get your death level down again. So you can. I do think it feels like you can eke away at it. Do you know what I mean? So you can get through the first level if you're under 25,
but
get through the second
I
level.
think you guys might have already experienced, like in that second level, in the club level, where, you know, you do get different kinds of enemies. You get enemies that, like, hey, these guys regularly throw in attacks that you can't counter or parry, so you need to get used to the dodge system and so on and so forth. And none of the permanent upgrades seem to be, hey, this is like an easy win. Like, they're just other tools, you know, in your arsenal, so to speak. Again, like I hope Chris is right. I hope this becomes a game that most people agree is completable. But I am also curious to see where, like, if there are very difficult elements, and it's a game that's almost 100% reliant on the player getting better, will there be so like I can tell you already.
Well,
like,
you can take a look at the trophies, right?
I looked at them the other day, and I don't know how much it's changed, but like the amount of people who have completed the drop off from the first boss to the second boss. It goes from like 80-something% to like in the teens.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So we're already talking about
I have been reading in reviews that the second boss is like one of the hardest fights.
Right. Okay.
So it's almost like a big spike up, and then it can kind of like mellow out.
I want to say as well that a lot of people have mentioned that in the second level the shortcut is like nothing to write home about. Like everyone's talked about the second level being rough.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yes, it looks like at the moment about 2% of all players have completed the game.
2%.
Oh wow, okay. Some people have completed it. Apparently, there's a trophy you can get if you complete the game and you're under 25.
Yes, that has been done by 0.2% of players.
Like that's insane.
Yeah.
I think that's the one good thing.
Yeah, sorry, Josie.
Oh, I was gonna say one thing that I actually find like an exciting prospect about Sifu is the idea that there is an age when you can go, how old were you when you finished Sifu? and once you finish the game, the replayability is like, can I get that age down?
Yeah.
And then do you then risk going back to the beginning to then grind down your first level age so you can, you know.
The challenge for you two is to complete Sifu with the character at a younger age than you are. That's the challenge.
I like it.
There you go.
I like it.
I'm laying down the law.
That is a good challenge, actually.
That is good.
What's the prize?
A copy of Sifu for the PlayStation 5.
Wow.
Which, Chris, you might be interested in. You know, you can play it on both platforms.
Maybe. But what about you,
Chris,
man?
Oh, what about me?
Yeah, because you haven't played Sifu like a loser.
I have not played Sifu. I have been playing something else because, you know, like, that's the thing. At this time of year, different people are filling their time in different ways. Some people are playing Sifu. Others, we might hear from one in a little bit, have been playing Dying Light. You know, you had Pokemon Legends Arceus rattling around, doing great sales. Lost Ark doing great numbers.
Man,
But really, there's only one game on the tip of everyone's tongue at this time of year, and it's OlliOlli World, the third entry in the famous OlliOlli series. And like, hey, do you know what? All joking aside, like, if you go on Metacritic, at least it was the other day. I don't know if it still is, but it's like the best reviewed game of all the ones I just joked about, and there's a reason for that. OlliOlli as a series has always been really fucking good, and OlliOlli World is really good. For anyone that's sort of not familiar, it's a formerly 2D, now kind of 3D on a 2D plane skateboarding game that sort of combines the analog stick gesture-based inputs of the Skate series with the combo-heavy arcadey action of the Tony Hawk series, and then simplifies it by putting it down on one plane. What I'll say is that for better and for worse, I guess OlliOlli World is just far more of an OlliOlli game than I thought it would be. I remember watching trailers, and they were sort of using the fact there's foreground and background tracks. It's 3D to switch between them, and they would come across characters along the way and take side quests and stuff like that. And I kind of thought it was this sort of dynamic, sort of almost quite procedural, emergent style of OlliOlli gameplay, but it's not. It's still very much level based. There's an overworld, for want of a better way of putting it, and you're still going into a level, doing a run, setting high scores, completing challenges, coming back out, and then choosing another level to go into. The main thing that they've updated, as will be clear for anyone that looks at it or watches the trailer, is the aesthetic. It's got a completely new look.
Amazing, yeah.
It's really nice to look at, I will say. And again, speaking of Sifu soundtrack, the soundtrack in OlliOlli World is sublime. Just the kind of tracks that you're sat there in a menu, you're hearing a song for the first time, and you go, "Hang on a second, hang on a sec. What are we doing here?"
Is the soundtrack on Spotify?
Good question. I don't know. If it is, I'd recommend putting it on. I also wasn't sure if it was original music or a Hotline Miami situation of curated tracks along a specific theme. I couldn't quite tell. But the music's good.
There is a playlist, OlliOlli World.
There you go.
And it does seem like it's Hotline Miami-esque in terms of curated stuff.
And speaking of Hotline Miami, it's also got that very addictive one button to quickly restart your run kind of thing to make it a little bit more accessible. They've added checkpoints here in the middle of some of the longer tracks, so some of the longer courses in the game will actually have 3 or 4 different checkpoints, and you can restart from them instead if you just want to see everything the game has to offer and get through all that content. So, it's the best looking and most interesting looking OlliOlli game so far. It's the most accessible OlliOlli game so far. It's the broadest in terms of features, because there's things like, I don't know, wall riding and shit like that that's new. There's side content, there's challenges, there's online stuff. It's a well fleshed out game.
But Jamie, if someone throws a bottle at you, can you unlock an upgrade that you catch the bottle and throw it back at them?
Regrettably, no. I think if someone throw, what can you do? I mean, you can wear a dress. You can you can wear a dress and grind a rail.
That's about it. Not much different to Jonesy's usual Saturday night.
You could befriend a guy named Dad who owns a shop called Rad Dad's.
Now we're talking business opportunity, franchise. So
you're in a dress, grinding a rail, talking to Dad at Rad Dad's. Okay.
I think we really have filled out Jonesy's pastimes.
My aim is to own a shop called Rad Dad.
I think you already are. You're already a Rad Dad, Jonesy. In my heart, at least. Were you going to ask something, Chris?
No, I was going to say something, and I'm thinking better of it now.
Sure, that's fair enough. I will say that's it from me on OlliOlli World. It's one of those games where, especially if you played either of the previous two, if you look at that trailer and you're like, I want some of that in my life, even to play in 5 or 10 minute increments, it's there for you. Which might be desirable, Jonesy, because there are other games on the market at the moment that might desire as much as 500 hours of your time, which is not the case in OlliOlli World. I will just say, I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but how are you progressing through the bleak and weary world of Dying Light 2?
I'm progressing pretty well, I think. I'm one of the reasons I haven't played as much Sifu as I might well have done is because I have been playing Dying Light Stay Human. It's a weird one, Dying Light. So I watched a whole load of the reviews for it before I actually played it, and I was a little bit apprehensive about what some people were kind of saying. When you sort of hear a game's one trick, so they were sort of suggesting that the parkour was fantastic, and then outside of the parkour, that the story and the characters and all of this stuff was pretty terrible, which isn't something you want to hear going into a new game, especially like an open world game where you have to talk to a lot of people and get side quests and go and do interesting stuff. But I've been really enjoying it. It's definitely got sort of an old open world like Far Cry 3 kind of feel to a lot of what you're going to towers, you're climbing them in interesting ways, you're like parkouring up them, and then you're opening a little box and connecting some wires to like bring a little area online. Like that's.
Hang on, I thought you said you'd been playing Dying Light 2.
I have been playing Dying Light 2.
I thought actually, for a second there, I thought we were both trying to finish Far Cry 6 before we moved.
But then that stuff even though it feels dated and a bit kind of like, oh wow, like they've decided that they wouldn't go with new and they just go with like hacky. It feels fine in the game because the main, I suppose the main like enjoyable factor about the game is that the world is cool. The parkour is on point. You can navigate the world very, very nicely through going like jumping from rooftop to rooftop. And where they have put some new kind of fleshed out stuff, which is interesting, is in the parkour as opposed to, you know, that kind of open worldy stuff which we've all seen before. So for example, there'll be a crane with like a beam hanging off of it and you can run and jump on the beam and it will move under your feet as you sort of like run and leap to another building. So that stuff is all very cool. I agree with what everyone said about the parkour. As for like the characters and the story, it's not that bad. Like it's not as bad as a lot of people have said. It's not quite as I want to say some of the reviews I've read were downright like, oh, this is shit. Like this stuff is crap. They've also, sorry,
well, I was going to say, didn't you think that some of the reviews were kind of like treating this as like, I don't know, a game from like a massive studio?
Yeah, maybe they were kind of thinking that it should have been an all singing, all dancing, like every level. But I think that it was more that they were just very critical of maybe some of the story element side of it and the character side of it, which I didn't play. So I'm not like, I haven't finished it or anything. I'm only sort of, I'm probably like, I don't know, 5 hours in, 6 hours in, something like that.
Oh, Jonesy, you've got 495 hours to go, mate.
I've got a lot to go. But even like to the point I'm at, I'm like, even with some of the side characters and, you know, meeting people around the place, it's very much like open world game fare. Like some of the missions and stuff are kind of stupid and some of the things you have to do. But already one thing I will say is I have bumped into quite a few occasions where it's like you have to decide what you're going to do. Like, are you going to kill this guy or are you going to be his friend? And I think we talked about before where Jamie said you end up with all these games, then rather than branching and becoming, you know, like actually having like 1,000 different options, they kind of have mini diamonds that kind of have you always feed back to the same point. I can see already how this game's going to do that. Like you might interact with someone and kill them. You might interact with somebody and be their friend, but you will get a different like unlock or a bonus or something from someone.
Yeah.
You do a mission in a certain way and you say that they're great.
Like,
and yeah, mate, go.
Sorry, I was going to say, I've already heard people who talked about the idea that there are like different factions within Dying Light 2. Like there's the kind of sort of like more the anarchistic sort of like free people, and then there's the slightly more authoritarian, like, hey, we're the police of this world kind of faction. And there are situations where even if you side with the kind of the anarchists and
with the renegades or the paragons,
every single time, like if you
they actually are the paragons or the
even if you side with the paragons, like every single time you're asked to make a decision, there'll still be a mission 25 hours in where you have to team up with the other faction, and they'll just like crack on like you haven't like given every single water tower to the other team for the last 50 hours.
So, but one thing I will say that I think it's going to develop in the game is I will give them a little bit of a pass for in that sense is when I first, the stuff about this game, it made it suggest like the factions were these completely separate entities and you could effectively build the world in the vision of one faction versus the vision of the other faction. And that hasn't materialized is what I think a lot of people have said. But actually the game itself, there's not as much of a delineation between the groups. So, for example, the peacekeepers and the people of the bazaar like live and like work together. Like the peacekeepers protect the people of the bazaar, but the people of the bazaar are like they don't really like the peacekeepers. So it's not quite as separate. So I don't think it's going to be quite as weird that you still have to work with both sides. Like so early on, there's missions where the peacekeepers will ask you to find out information about something, and you can choose to help them. But even helping them doesn't mean that you can't still work with the people from the bazaar. Like those two things do kind of work. Some of my favorite things about the game so far, though, that I do think are really cool, are the way that they incorporate, like, obviously it was in the first Dying Light, but the day-night cycle. So in the day when you sneak into a building and it is just full of like they're undead and they're like asleep or they're moping around, and you can try and like get in there and get like, you know, unlock boxes with cool stuff in, and you get these like containers that buff you and give you skills and things. But then going there in the day is just no-go. So then you have to go back at night. And some missions are explicitly like, no, you've got to do this at night. You feel more powerful in this from the get-go than you did in the first Dying Light. It's not quite as like, oh shit, I'm scared of everything. You do feel from the get-go like, oh no, you're a badass melee, like dude who can chop heads and pop zombies. Like, it's not a problem. But yeah, no, very cool, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Okay, cool. It's interesting as well that you make that last point when, again, I feel like one of the things I have heard in a lot of places is that, like, oh, I've played this game for 7 hours and I opened the skill tree and it became very clear that this was a skill tree that was designed to be, completed and filled out over the course of tens of hours. Like,
it's so slow.
I've played 6 hours and I've got 2 parkour skills.
I've got 2. I've played about 6 hours, 7 hours. I've got, I think, 2 parkour skills and 2 combat skills, and there's like maybe 30 of each of those things. And there's also like you're leveling up your health and your stamina at the same time, and you just cannot do certain things in the game until your stamina is high enough. You guys would love it because it is like Breath of the Wild. You climb up buildings, and when your stamina runs out, you just fall off. So you'd be all about that. No, you're absolutely right. That is annoying. What I mean is you're powerful in the sense of from day one. When you get into that environment, you can have a ruck with the zombies, and you can hold your own against a group of like 10, 20 of them. It's not that difficult. There's like crafting resources are everywhere, so you can make like health packs and stuff. I got into situations where I'm pretty sure I was supposed to stealth it, and then I tripped up and made a noise, and then suddenly they all woke up. Or there was a box that I wanted, and I had to go loud to get it, and I just killed like 20 of the zombies. And it's not like, oh, you definitely can't do this. You can do it. You can go loud and you can fight. Whereas I feel like the first game was less like that. Like you'd get in more trouble.
Yeah, but doesn't that take something away from it though? Because I think that's maybe
no, because I want to feel powerful. I don't want to be scared all the time, Chris. I don't want to feel afraid.
Power fantasy, right? Just play Sifu then.
Power fantasy. No, because I'm much worse at Sifu than I am at Dying Light. But it's cool. I'm like, I'm definitely sticking with it for the time being.
Nice. By the way, when I said like, oh, what do they think? Like Techland's like some big company. I just looked up how many employees they have.
Yes.
400.
Oh wow.
Well, Techland are a weird one where they've got 400 employees, but then I can't remember who said it. Someone pointed this out in a video somewhere, but I want to say that they're an indie, basically. They self-published this game, and that can kind of... But also there's that argument of like, okay, let's say you look that up and they had 40 employees, and you go like, oh, okay, like, yeah, there's not that many of them, and this is a really big undertaking, so that's why you'd forgive a bit of this, that, and the other. But it's also like, well, hang on a second, don't make a 500-hour game. Make a better 30-hour one.
We said it a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, when we were talking about fucking Ben Studios complaining that this, that, the other, and it's just like, well, no one told you to make a 60-hour game, dude.
Yeah. Well, the good news, Jonesy, is that you've got another week between now and when you're next going to be back to talk about Dying Light 2 to make as much progress as you can on that 500 hours. The bad news is that when you next reconvene, it'll be the night that Horizon Forbidden West comes out. So best of luck to you, my friend.
So I'm not,
and your impulsive video game purchasing decisions. Okay, yeah, fair.
I'm not here next week, and I'm going on holiday.
So even worse.
So what you're saying is you're going to go on holiday, you're going to get completely knocked out of the rhythm of playing both these games, you're going to come back, not want to touch either of them, immediately buy Horizon, focus on that, and probably never play either Dying Light or Sifu ever again?
Yeah, the Alex Jones effect.
You are absolutely wrong, because A, I've already got Horizon on the pre-order, so it's already on its way. I don't need to buy it. And secondly, when I say I'm on holiday, I'm going to stay in a family member's house on the sea. There's not much to do, and I'm taking my PlayStation 5.
Oh, nice.
So
okay,
I'm actually thinking that, and I'm going with my parents, which means childcare. So I'm hoping that I get to.
So you're gonna
sink a few hours.
Crack out the old trailer to carry the PS5 all the way there. Yeah. Joke about its size.
Yeah, I'll have to strap it to the
Also,
roof.
I love Jonesy at this point not being in denial about the fact that he's just going to replay Lego Jurassic World 7 times over the course of that one holiday. As
do you know how much?
You bring the PS5 with you, but getting it to yourself is that's a different story.
Do you know what's hilarious? Is like, so my record on finishing games is not great. Like, I'm pretty average probably with.
You've been doing way better recently. For sure.
I have.
I am now the de facto non-finisher of games.
In your defense, Chris, you need to play games to finish them.
This is true. Like, you can't always play Dota and say that you finish a game, right? So.
I start to, like, as we've already alluded to, I start far too many games. I think I worked out last year I started playing 25 games, like new games that I'd never played. Not like that came out last year, but like that I hadn't played before. My 5-year-old last year finished to like almost 100%, like 3 or 4 games. Like every game he gets, he just plays and plays and plays and plays, and he doesn't stop. So yeah, as you said, he's finished all of the Jurassic Lego World, like the entire game. He's nearly unlocked everything. He'll go back and he'll get every achievement, every little thing. Like he can be a skeleton Tyrannosaurus Rex, like if he wants, because he's unlocked that, and he's relentless. So he's definitely putting me to shame.
Nice. Before we move on, Chris. Would you like to give us a little update, perhaps, on some of your television watching in the last week? Any updates on some hot and heavy series that might be streaming at the moment?
Sure, very quickly. Caught up and finished Book of Boba Fett, which is an interesting one because I can't remember if I spoke about it before, but the first couple of episodes are pretty fucking shit, to put it lightly. And then it kind of almost turned into, oh, we're not making Boba Fett anymore. We're making The Mandalorian, like 2.5. And then it became a lot better. And then what happened is then they started to kind of think like, oh, well, actually what we got to turn the show into is just fucking fan service, the TV show, and just introduce a whole bunch of characters and like throwbacks and callbacks and stuff like that. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm all for. I love that shit. But does it make for a necessarily good show? Not really. I will say that in the finale, though, some cool shit happens. Like, some cool stuff that you want to see happen, but at the same time, like for half of the episode, and the other half of the episode was just like bullshit, and you're just like, I don't care about this. This is stupid. This is childish. This is moronic. I don't care. But on the other side, you got fucking Boba Fett.
Star Wars.
Yeah. On the other side, you got Boba Fett fucking riding a Rancor, fighting droids. You're like, yeah, boy, I'll take that any day.
I saw a GIF that someone shared from the series, and it looked so shit. It's like there's some
honestly, Jonesy
Yeti thing, and he like knocks it away, does a spin, and then does a shoot something, and it looked like some awful 1970s TV show.
Yeah, that's in the finale. Like some of the decisions they made on this show, fellas, like it defies logic. It's like you've got the one of the most recognizable franchises on the planet, and you make this show. It's bizarre.
But they're just trying to marvel it, right? They're doing the same thing. They're squeezing those franchises for every drop.
They are trying to marvel it. And look, they don't have an easy job of doing it, right? Because if they introduce new characters, they get shut on. If they introduce old characters and try and flesh them out, they get shut on. So it's like rock and a hard place. I get it. Like my personal perspective is we didn't need to fucking continue on Boba Fett. Like we have the Mandalorian as a Boba Fett facsimile or replacement that is doing exceptionally well and critically acclaimed. There was no need for Boba Fett. Like, if you want to bring him, I don't know.
Do you think that they bring Boba Fett, like give him a series because of the Gina Carano situation? Because they were going to give her a series, right?
Oh, they're giving everyone a series, Jonesy.
But then obviously she got fired. So I'm wondering.
No, but they're just giving that. Honestly, like.
This is Jonesy trying to get his Gina Carano quartering talking points into.
Yes,
no, isn't that what they were Disney was supposed to be doing? They were going to give Gina Carano a series, and then they fired her from The Mandalorian.
They were going to, or she was going to be part of a series, not like star in a series. She was. I thought
she had her own series coming up.
Well, part of an ensemble, I think, called Rangers of the New Republic, but I think that's been canned. But they. I
wondered if they canned that.
No.
Fett was
because
like, they were like, "What are we gonna do? Make a Boba Fett series?"
No, literally, they'd like greenlit like 10 different TV shows, and that was one of them.
We've got another season of The Bad Batch. We've got Star Wars Visions, Star Wars Detours, obviously the ongoing Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, and
Obi-Wan Kenobi in May, Andor, and I think that's it at the moment.
Jesus.
Yeah, and then there's meant to be Rangers of the New Republic, which apparently is. They're thinking of how they're going to bring it back. Andor's been renewed for season 2, even though season 1 hasn't even fucking aired yet. Like, I don't know. They're trying some shit, and like, I don't blame them for trying to bring back Boba Fett. It's just like, it just defies logic. They didn't need to bring him back. They didn't need to humanize him in the way that they did. I think they.
Oh, God, there's way more. Sorry.
Yeah, there's way more. They fundamentally, I think, misunderstood what people enjoyed about Boba Fett, and then. Halfway through, they probably realized that themselves and then said, you know what, let's just bring back the Mandalorian because that's what people fucking gravitated towards. And it's just like,
but even the Mandalorian was like wasn't great.
The Mandalorian was great for what it is, because you've got to remember, like, there was no Star Wars TV show other than like animated shows up to that point. And I think what it did really well. And I think
it wasn't bad, but I do think it was, when people were saying how amazing it was, like sitting through like that whole thing and then being like, oh, okay, this is not what I thought this was going to be. I understand now why everyone talks about Baby Yoda so much.
Jonesy, let me tell you, to watch some of Boba Fett, and you would think that Mandalorian is like fucking Schindler's List, like that caliber.
Oh God!
Right, like.
Right, you're not selling it to me.
No, it actually makes me think that like Robert Rodriguez should just stop making movies, because he directs most of them.
I could have told you that about 20 years ago, to be honest.
I was going to say, like, as soon as he went to like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and I watched something the other day.
Spy Kids.
No, but there's one of the latest ones, like My Heroes or something, or
what's it called? I think I remember this film
with Pedro Pascal's in it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Robert Rodriguez, he's always had like weird famous friends. He's like, Antonio, can you just do this one more time? Like, please, Danny Trejo, just be in this fucking movie. I promise we'll do Machete eventually.
but you see, like Once Upon a Time in Mexico, fucking great film. Desperados, obviously, great film. Sin City, great film.
Okay, I actually like Sin City, but have you seen Once Upon a Time in Mexico recently?
I didn't like it when it came out.
Not too
I
far.
found it a really weird film.
I don't think that sort of like trilogy has aged particularly gracefully, in my opinion. I watched some scenes from it the other. You remember the bit where like Johnny Depp is like has his eyes like ripped out, but he still manages to like shoot those. It's ropey, bro. Some great actors though in that movie and all those movies. Right then, if no one's got anything else to recap from the last week, shall we wrap up this podcast with a little recap of our own? This time looking at the first Nintendo Direct of the year, and what a strange Direct it was.
Man, yeah, really fucking bizarre. Someone said it right, like, if you were ever a fan of obscure Japanese RPGs, this is the one for you.
Yeah. I think it's probably worth saying up front that we, and this will come as a shock to no one who listens to us on a regular basis, are perhaps not the biggest fans of some obscure JRPGs, nor are we particularly knowledgeable on some obscure JRPGs. So I'll say up front, if, in the interest of both time and sanity, we perhaps don't give a particular game that you're excited about that much time in the spotlight as we recap this Direct, I apologise, but there were still some interesting things to talk about. They actually kicked things off with a return of Fire Emblem, but not the kind of Fire Emblem that fans wanted to see, because it's another Musou game. It's Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, which, again, that probably tickled someone somewhere, and I know that last Hyrule Warriors game was apparently okay, but yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I like Musou games. They're a fucking hell of a lot of fun, but if you talk about something like Fire Emblem and it's like story based, probably not what they wanted to see.
Yeah, I hear there'll be a proper Fire Emblem coming up this year, but I think that will have to wait. In the meantime, though, I know a lot of people, and Chris, I don't know if we've ever talked about it before, but you strike me as someone who could be one of these people, just based off you and your sort of your personality and your track record. Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, the laboriously named reboot of Advance Wars, is finally back on track. It's coming out in April. Did you play the originals on the GBA?
I didn't. I want to say I think I played one on the Wii. I'm sure there's an Advance Wars on the Wii that I played. I think so. But I've only ever played one game. I think it was the Wii one. It's okay. I especially stuff like this. Like, you talk about remastering these original ones with like fucking limited stuff. There's another game that later on that they fucking
I feel like that was half the Direct, is series that had lots of entries, but one specific entry was always revered for one specific reason, and Nintendo never went back to it. And now they've realised that if you go back to it on the Switch, you print money.
Yeah,
that's what this Direct.
That is literally their MO with at the moment with the Switch, is just doing that.
Yeah, but it's just like with it. There's a couple of instances in this Direct where it's just kind of like you're doing the wrong one, potentially. Okay, so Advance Wars 1 and 2. What platform did it originally come out on?
I think it was GBA.
GBA, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
GBA, as great as a console as it was, those games were fucking simple, right?
Would we call it a console?
Yes.
Shut up, Jonesy.
Yeah, now you're getting into it. But like, it's all fine to kind of like reboot these ones, but like you don't have to fucking make a big song and dance out of it. Like to me, this is something that you sell Nintendo Switch online with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's absolutely like an additional thing to something, right?
I think I think they're doing enough to this in that they're taking a Game Boy Advance game and like remaking it with up-to-date graphics that I'll let them pass. There are some other suspects later on though where I tend to agree. Like you could have packaged this up in a different way, but prey on that nostalgia, right? Like if people care, make them pay.
I mean, you said it. Put on Switch, prints money, and I think that's just kind of what it is. It's almost like.
Do you even think it's nostalgia at this point, though? Do you think it's? I think it's still that thing of the dearth of like first-party Switch stuff. It was people just want Switch stuff. I don't think it's even nostalgia at this point.
I think it's both.
You guys say that though, but fuck, like you can't say that anymore about the Switch. You just can't. Okay.
I think you still kind of can.
Yeah, I think you can.
No,
like,
you can't. Like you can talk about your own personal preference, but the facts are there are a shit ton of games, first and third party, on Nintendo Switch for you to play. But just because they're not ticking the boxes that we want, like we said, if you are that fucking obscure JRPG fan, do you know what? That console to end all consoles is the fucking Switch.
Okay, no, I see what you're saying.
There's loads of shit there. Like you can have that criticism, but that criticism needs to shift from like, oh, there's no games on the Switch, because that's not.
It's not. No. It's not that there's no games.
He said first party as well.
Even first party, dude.
But I think it's still the issue that when you get onto that library of games and you go, right, I want to find something to play on my Switch. It still feels like you're struggling to find like solid. You can go and get third-party stuff. You can go and get like ports over that you're never going to play on a Switch because you've already played it on other systems that like look better and are better ways of playing a game.
Yeah.
And then you go, hey, I've played like Luigi's Mansion. I've played like Mario Odyssey. I've played like Breath of the Wild. I want more Switch goodness. And then every time they drop something, it's like, oh, first-party Switch stuff. I would much rather they did more new shit than like say, oh, we've found an old game that we've decided to like.
To be fair,
they are doing. Yeah, they are doing now with this Direct as well. So to be fair,
I'm 100% with you on that. Is that I'd like to see them do a lot more than just kind of like, hey, we've just shinied up these graphics and added some voice actors. You know?
Yeah. Also, I think that again, for my tastes, 2021 in Nintendo first party output like perspective was some of the weakest entries some of those series had seen for a long time.
Yeah.
In that I think like last year, I think the WarioWare game was weak. I think the Pokemon game was weak. I think that the Mario Golf game was weak, like relative to where these series have peaked in the past. One thing I will say is that they've had a number of games that have seemed always right around the corner, and knowing Nintendo could pop up anywhere. And if they pull out some bullshit this year where like Bayonetta 3, Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime, if like those caliber of first-party titles start popping up, then you know, immediately they're in business.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, talking of printing money, porting games, Jonesy, are they going to claim any of your money with a port of No Man's Sky somehow running on the Nintendo Switch, not in a cloud format?
I don't really understand how that works. Like, fair enough if they've got it done. Like, okay, fill your boots. The last thing I'm going to do is attempt to play that handheld for one. And also, I don't want to play it on my TV either, because if I'm going to do that, I'll just play it on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
So this isn't for me. Maybe if there are people out there who now want to dip into No Man's Sky after the amount of fan service Hello Games have done over the years, we're actually making this into like, you know, developing and releasing updates and expansions and stuff. They've done a hell of a thing. And I can absolutely see why people would want to jump into No Man's Sky. And I think if you haven't got another way to play it, maybe this is a good way to play it. Not really for me personally. Like,
fair enough.
I think it's the prospect of the Switch. It's bad to say, but sometimes the Switch feels like a second-rate prospect for games that you don't have a chance to play in another format.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yes. Until they release games that can't be played anywhere else or in any other format, like
absolutely
the grand, long-awaited return of Mario Strikers in the form of Mario Strikers Battle League, which, for anyone, for whatever reason, if that name doesn't ring any bells, that's Mario's take on football, or soccer, if you will. And I'm very excited to see it come back. Not because it's particularly good. Like, I had that GameCube one and I loved it a lot, but it's not a great football game. It's just really cool to see Mario and co take on like a 5v5 footballing game. Like it's odd.
It's fun though because it's got like power ups and shit. I played the one on the Wii. Like
yes,
it's fun, man. Like it's a fun.
Yeah,
that's a fun game.
There's a gear system this time, so you can build up like a super like armored Mario or a more nimble one. Like it's interesting.
Yeah.
One thing, though, that I think is perhaps slightly less interesting for you two, just purely based on the fact that I don't think either of you picked up the second one on Switch, in spite of the fact that it was critically. Well, the first one was on the Wii U, right, which made it awkward.
Yeah.
But the second one was not only an early Switch game at a time where first-party Nintendo Switch games were at a premium, but also was critically acclaimed. Splatoon is coming back in just a couple of months, sometime this summer. They showed off the new Salmon Run mode coming to Splatoon 3, or the updated Salmon Run mode in the Splatoon. But neither of you two are Splatoon guys, from what I gather.
No.
I can never get with it on the Switch. Like, that's not the game I want to play on the Switch. The type of game, do you know what I mean? Like,
it does kind of strike me as a game that, like, if you play it and you get it, like, it's fucking great, but you got to try it. Can't just have an opinion on it without trying it.
I really liked the second one. I just fell off it when because I didn't think that the Switch was that conducive to competitive multiplayer action in the way I wanted to play it and the times I wanted to play it.
But listen, Jamie, I mean that's exactly it, right? Like maybe I'll jump into Splatoon when they complete the promise of what they showed off in that launch trailer for the Switch of a stadium full of people with like fucking teenagers with the fucking Switch Pro controllers. Duking it out for a big prize pool.
You heard it here first. If anyone wants to sign up Chris for some Splatoon esports, he is primed and ready from what I gather.
You say that, but did you see the news that dropped today that Pokemon Unite, the MOBA, is having a championship with a $1 million prize pool?
Nice.
Yeah, but then any game can do that. You just write a check for $1 million, and guess what? You've got an esports competition with a $1 million prize pool.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Do it for Splatoon. That's what they were promising.
They probably will do something like that.
Alluding to it, but yeah.
Yeah. I think there'll be some competitive action on the Splatoon 3 front. We'll find out more this summer. And I will just say, after that point in the Direct, we entered one of the kind of the trademark Nintendo Direct lulls, where they just kind of like churn out a few ports and remasters that aren't of any real interest to anyone in particular. So I'll rattle through these, but I want you to stop me if you do have anything to say. First up, for anyone that just wanted to say the word Wanzers out loud again, I've got good news because Front Mission is apparently coming back. They are remaking the first game for the Nintendo Switch, and the sequel, Front Mission 2, I presume, I don't even know, is going to come back at some point. That's a weird, like, tactical mech action game. Yeah. Another weird one, something that we didn't know existed, I don't believe, up until this point, is Disney Speedstorm, which is a kart racer which uses Disney and Pixar properties as basis for the courses and the riders. Potentially very interesting. Actually looked quite sharp, but a little bit off-putting is the fact that it's made by Gameloft, the mobile developers behind Asphalt, if you wanted another reference for racing games, and it's free to play. So
this is smart, dude. This is like.
But do you not think that could be a bit grubby, like a free-to-play Gameloft game?
Of course,
like,
it
is that
could
what
be
you
grubby,
want
but like, you know what? Fucking Chris Scullion fucking said it the best way. Like, yeah, it could be ropey, but it's free, so you try it, and if you don't like it, like, you haven't wasted anything.
That's not a great like way to look at free-to-play.
No, yeah, it's not. But then you've got to look at it from a company's perspective, where just because they're making a free-to-play game doesn't mean that they're not going to pay attention to it. Because really what they want to do is release the best free-to-play game that they can so that they can get you to sink in money.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, which is why I hope, you'd hope that what they were saying is we've made a damn good game.
Yeah.
It's free-to-play. So
Jonesy, one of the greatest games ever made is free-to-play, and that's Dota 2.
This is very true. It's a weird prospect to me to make up for them to release this on the Switch, just because does it cannibalize any future market for like Mario Kart, given how fucking expensive Mario Kart games are and how long they hang around? Like if this is successful and it does work, surely why would you buy Mario Kart 9 or whatever it is when it drops?
I think we're going to get to a bullet point later on the Direct that suggests that Mario Kart 9 is not as imminent as some speculators would have wanted us to believe a couple of weeks ago.
Damn well hoped.
Yeah. But I know what you mean.
It's relentless of Nintendo to not give us the games that we actually want and just pump out games that we didn't ask for.
Well, but I think
I don't. Yeah.
I think it's like this, fellas. You've got James Bond, and then you've got like the Kingsman franchise. They're both like spies and gadgets and shit, but one is a higher quality or appeals to a different audience than another. Like, yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question. In this scenario, is the Chocobo Grand Prix thing, is that Austin Powers?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Very much so, yes. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Like, that doesn't, like, you can have multiple kart games. Like, fuck.
Plus, I think at this stage, like the idea of a free-to-play Gameloft game cannibalizing, like at this point, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's audience can't be cannibalized because it's already one of the biggest games of all time, certainly as far as Nintendo are concerned. Like,
no, this isn't going to affect that at all. It's the only thing I would think it could affect if it was successful would be a future Mario Kart release. But
yeah, there's also the elephant in the room that Nintendo themselves released a free-to-play Mario Kart game that no one fucking wanted. So. And most people forgot exists.
Which was the?
There you go. This? Nintendo made a full-on free-to-play Mario Kart game. It's on iOS right now.
Oh, right, okay.
It's mobile, I should say. Like,
mobile.
Yeah, Nintendo's foray into mobile still remains this just bizarre experiment that so near yet so far. Oh well. But yes, I will just say also that Speedstorm isn't the only thing that Disney are up to when it comes to the Nintendo Switch, because some clearly very intelligent person sat around at Disney realized that they had not yet finished porting every single old Star Wars game that's ever existed to the Nintendo Switch, because The Force Unleashed hadn't made it over yet. So that is now happening. It's coming out in April. It is just the first one, and it is a port of the Wii version of that game, which is... presumably means they can get some kind of a motion control setup in there, and B means it looks like absolute shit.
But why didn't they just? I mean, I know why, but they should have just bundled it with Force Unleashed 2. Like we're going to talk about later, but another franchise fucking just clumped them in together. You know, like
again, like we all know what you're doing. You're taking games that are very easy to port onto the Switch, and you're putting them out there because you know that lots of people have Switches and people want games to play on. People are going to buy it. Like, just make it as appetizing as it can be, please. Don't make me individually buy the Wii version of The Force Unleashed. Make it the 360 version and bundle it with the second one, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, it can handle it.
This is at this point. It is just like they're mopping up everything that they need to just. They can go, oh, we can resell this. No one bought it before. Now everyone's got a Switch.
Honestly, Jonesy, that feels what this fucking Nintendo Direct was.
Yes. One caveat, though, I will add though, is that some studios are not simply happy to port their games. They are happy to port them with HD Rumble and touchscreen controls, as is the case with Assassin's Creed: The Ezio Collection. So if you ever wanted to play those 3 Assassin's Creed games that came out fucking over a decade ago on the go, well, there you go. You can now.
I think this is cool. And I'd be really kind of like intrigued by the HD Rumble, because not even Nintendo's fucking doing HD Rumble like as a first party fucking producer. So it's like, that would be cool, because HD Rumble, I've said it before, it's sick, fellas. But like no one uses it.
Yep. You can roll the Joy-Con back and forth and figure out how many balls Ezio has.
I just love that the biggest benefit we're talking about with the Ezio collection on Switch is the fact that your controllers rumbles. Like that's the biggest plus. But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyone who didn't play those games when they came out and can now play them on Switch.
Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood are 2 of the best Assassin's Creed games. So
yeah, exactly. And you say that like the fucking GTA trilogy didn't sell 10 million copies. I'm not saying it's on the same level, but like there's a thirst for shit like this.
Yeah. The break-even line on some of these ports must be so abominably low that's why this stuff gets signed off. And they just say to themselves, hey, the only marketing budget we need is give Nintendo enough money to put us on a direct. Enough people will see that we're porting this game and subsequently buy it that we've broken even easy.
Yeah. I'm gonna need to like get one of these games at one point, because I can't, every time I hear it, and maybe it's really unfair, I just think it must be such a horrible way to play that game. Like when you say to me, you can now, on the Switch. Like what I'm thinking in my head, because I'm thinking there's no way you're playing that on a TV because it's going to look like trash. So you're going to play it handheld, right? And then the idea of playing it handheld, I mean, maybe it is like maybe it's the commuter thing. Like you can get on a train, you can get on a bus, you can get on a plane, and you can play it like that. And maybe that's a cool way to do it. But I need to give it a try because it mustn't be as bad as I envisage it being. But I just think of these as being the worst ways to experience some of these games. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are great ports and they're fun to play and they're wicked.
I know one particular port or one remaster that is coming to the Nintendo Switch that a lot of very passionate people on Twitter will definitely tell you you're wrong about, Jonesy, is Chrono Cross, which is the critically acclaimed JRPG that released on the PS1 back at the turn of the century. It is finally coming back. It is getting remastered for the Switch. It's getting packaged in with some weird fucking text-based adventure prequel thingy that I don't even know if it ever saw the light of day back in the day. But put it short, I don't know about us here. Chris, you're probably the most knowledgeable, I'd guess, because you're in the kind of the JRPG scene on the PlayStation 1 following Final Fantasy VII. But this seems like a big deal to a lot of people.
I think it is. I never played Chrono Cross, but I think obviously it's got its fans. But this is an example of what I would imagine a majority of the fans would say is they've done the wrong one.
Right. You're thinking Chrono Trigger.
Again.
Chrono Trigger, yeah. And like, okay, like I said, like I can't necessarily judge because I haven't played Chrono Cross, but from what I saw, I'm just like, oh, you've literally, I mean, I might be wrong, but this is how it seemed to me. You've literally just ported the PS1 game.
They are calling it a remaster, but I'm not familiar enough to know.
But do you know what I mean? Like, looking at the stuff that they showed off, it's just like, you know what? You're right. It looks like a fucking upraised PS1 game. Like, congratulations. Like, what are we doing here, fellas? Like,
but see, that's like, you see, you before, you were saying, oh no, what are you talking about? They've got loads of Nintendo Switch games. You can't say that anymore. You can't say that they haven't got any games. It's like, yeah, but so many of them are like this. So many of them are ports, remasters, like, an up-res version of an old thing. Like, that's what they keep doing. That's what there's so much of.
Yeah, but I think there's degrees. Look, I'm sure this will be like really well received by the fans of this game. But
yes,
to me, it just looks, I don't know. It just
like,
It almost makes me think. Sorry, it almost makes me think that like Square Enix are like the smartest idiots in the room. If is the only way I can put it, that they do shit like this. Like there's no other way that I can kind of.
I guess it's difficult without the reverence, because one thing about Chrono Cross that does seem unique is that this is not a thing that's been sort of like ported to other random consoles over the course of the last 20 years. It's not like this has been on Steam for the last 7 years, iOS and Android for the last 4 years, and now it's on. This is like a thing where, no, this is acclaimed, of the time at least, to have been one of the most beloved RPGs, some people have ever seen played, and it's finally making something of a return. And it is something of a remaster, even if it's not that grand one. Yeah,
it's like if you want to play it, like, hey, you can play it on your Switch, and that's good enough for what they're imagining these people to be, these fans. But I just look at it and I'm just like,
fair enough. Well, do you know what one thing we can look at it as, which is perhaps more interesting for our tastes, is it's another tick in the column of the NVIDIA GeForce Now leak list. This did appear on there, and it has now reared its head. So make of that what you will, folks. Another thing that you can make of what you will is the game that Nintendo chose to fill the patented Nintendo Direct meme slot with. That's right, because everyone had got all their chuckles out of the way when it came to Chris Pratt being cast as Mario. We needed a new meme. We needed a new meme format. And with that, Nintendo have given us Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which was the already revealed and already shown off sort of upcoming 3D Kirby game. They released a new trailer, though, to highlight a mode called Mouthful mode, which, as we hinted at the top of the show, sees Kirby inhale large objects, for example, cars or vending machines or a giant cone, and essentially wrapping his skin around them and becoming them in a very uncomfortable, sort of like body horror-esque, sort of David Cronenberg-like way. That I thought was very sexy.
Wow, okay. I kind of get the feeling that you're a latex fetishist.
I'm into vor.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But this is what, to me, what the Switch is all about. Like, this is what I want to see. Get me some weird character from Days of Yore doing some weird shit.
I mean, there was a point.
They need to do.
Chris, I don't think agreed based on the WhatsApp messages he was sending at the time, but there was a point where Kirby swallowed a car and started driving around a level, and I thought, "Fuck yeah, I'm in."
Like, I thought it looked wicked. I'm like, yes, it's bright, it's colourful, it's ridiculous. Like, this is what the Switch should be about. Like, I don't want remastered. I want them to be weird and wacky and this is crazy.
You can't fault them for doing wacky shit, and we should be encouraging developers to make more strange fucking stuff.
Like, the Switch is about fun, right?
Yeah,
that's the main thing to me. Is it's a console that's about it's Nintendo, and it's like fun.
I thought for you it was about dinky games or rinky dink games or whatever.
Dinky little games are fun. They're fun. That's what they should be. That's why I don't care about like JRPGs from olden days getting remastered and put back on the Switch. I want to see some rinky dink fun with some bright colours and Kirby eating a vending machine and then spitting cans at people. Like, that's what you want.
I mean, I haven't played Chrono Cross, but from what I know of it, I haven't seen anyone inhale a car. So, I mean, it's apples and oranges, really, as far as I'm concerned.
It is a rip-off, though, isn't it?
Of
Odyssey, where like little Cappy could go.
Yeah, but again,
you've said this already, Jonesy.
I know. I'm saying it did.
This is if this is a chicken and the egg situation. Kirby came first.
But
do you reckon this is using the Odyssey engine?
Yes,
it looks a bit Odyssey.
I can believe there being some shared tech there. Sure, some shared ideas.
But did Kirby do the thing where he could take over stuff and make it do what he wanted?
Yes, but never things this big, which is probably why it's called Mouthful mode.
Ah, okay. Right.
Like when you watch the rest of the trailer, like there's things where like Kirby is a dude who has a sword and a Link like cap now.
Yeah.
Like he got that stuff from he swallows people and takes their abilities.
Yeah.
He just never did it. Like I said, with cars and vending machines.
Fellas, you know what? Kirby's always been my main in Smash, so I can't really complain, right?
I didn't know this much about Kirby. I've never played a Kirby game before, but Kirby is nightmare fuel. I'm just going to say that. Like, it's ticking some boxes. It's pretty scary stuff, and I'm thinking
Kirby will suck you off, dude.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
I promise you, I haven't looked into it, but I can almost guarantee there's already a subreddit for people who want to get mouthfuled by Kirby.
Oh, 100%.
DeviantArt has been lighting up the switchboards all night because people are just drawing themselves getting eaten by Kirby.
Wow.
I will say though,
do you reckon there's a Kirby fleshlight?
Yes. Big time. And if not, like, let's make one before this podcast airs because
I'm just going to do a
there's money on the table.
Kirby.
There's money on the table.
With different inserts.
Because that's what I like.
I feel like Chris has just stumbled on a Google search he now wishes he didn't make. Either that or he's aroused.
Second he typed in fleshlight, it went to his history and just found Asa Akira fleshlight. It's just like, do you want to buy another one?
Yeah, I've worn through my other one.
Yeah.
It's just got a hole on the other side, just goes straight through.
It's like a sock with a hole at the end. It's just like nothing left. No structural integrity left.
Yeah.
Done.
And just like a hole in a sock, like one day it's sort of like a 2mm by 2mm hole, and you go, it's fine. And then 6 weeks later, all 5 of your toes are coming out the other end.
Yeah.
Do you know what though?
That's killed me. Just carry on. Just move on.
I will say, Kirby aside, another individual who has actually built something like a vending machine is Shohei Ohtani, the baseball man who I'd never heard of up until like 2 weeks ago, who is the face and cover of MLB The Show 22, which comes to the Switch for the first time. So shout out to baseball.
I mean, Japanese people love baseball. That's the thing.
Do you know what else Japanese people love?
Basketball.
Actually, maybe. But
I don't think they do. I don't think they do.
Okay,
I think that's more the Chinese market.
Tennis?
Yes, they do like tennis.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say something that Japanese people like more than any of these sports. It's making
sushi.
They love
actually,
sushi.
Well, maybe not sushi. They do like sushi. Again, maybe or is it? Do they like it, or are they just good at it? There's a difference, you know.
Or is there just that expectation? So they're just kind of like, yeah, okay, sushi. Oh, Japanese.
Oh, we're
yeah,
the sushi guys, like us. Like I don't like tea or fish and chips particularly, but you know that's.
I wonder if they
that's
do
me.
get pissed off at that. I wonder if they do think of it like that. Like, you all eat sushi, and they're like, no, we don't, mate. We eat loads of other stuff as well. And there's us banging on about sushi.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, go on, Jamie. What were you going to say?
The joke that I was going to try and make was that the only thing that Japanese people love more than sushi and baseball is making games that aren't actually that good that they can sell to weebs in America who overrate them to beyond any extent that we thought was possible. And I think the primo example of that in the history of video games happens to be Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, big time. And this is my biggest a little bit of a meander, but my biggest worry with Final Fantasy VII Remake is it's going to go the fucking Kingdom Hearts direction.
Oh my goodness, Chris. I hope for your sake it doesn't, because the Kingdom Hearts direction took on a whole new meaning over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months actually, as Nintendo and Square Enix have revealed more about what Kingdom Hearts on the Switch looks like. So for anyone that hasn't seen it, basically all the various latest editions of the Kingdom Hearts game, so you know how it's now like 1.5 HD and 2.5 HD.
Yeah.
So it's not just Kingdom Hearts 2 anymore, it's all that shite. They are all coming to the Switch, but despite the fact that half of these games are fucking PS2 games, they're coming to the Switch as cloud versions, and not only that, they are being gathered up together and sold in one fucking fell swoop in something called the Integrum Masterpiece Cloud Edition, which is £80 in the UK and $90 in the US.
And so, what do you get in that? But when you get
you get 1.5 something or other, 2.5 something or other, 2.8 something or other, and 3.
Do you get Dream Drop Distance remix?
I'll put it this way: I think you get most of the. You get every single Kingdom Hearts thing that's coming to the Switch at once,
including
and it is
3.
Cheaper. I think it's including 3.
If you get 3 as well,
it is cheaper than buying them all separately.
Yeah,
but if you get 3 as well, that's not as bad as I would have thought. That is a lot though. There's a lot of money to drop on that.
Cloud Edition though, fellas. So if you go down, if you go into the tube, you fuck out of luck.
Yeah. It's a lot of game, even if we're going to talk up the fact that the price tag sounds ridiculous on paper. But you're right, it's the Cloud Edition part that I can't get over. Half of these games are PS2 games. Do the work. Port them. If The Force Unleashed can make it over, fucking Kingdom Hearts can, okay?
Hey, there's something else that's going to come out in a bit. That's like, if you can put this on the fucking Switch, like, you could put anything. Just okay.
I will say, I do kind of want to play Kingdom Hearts 3. I
no, you
a
don't.
Little bit
no, you don't, Jonesy.
I do.
No, you don't.
I don't want to spend £80 on it. I want to spend the tenner.
I will say that it is Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and Kingdom Hearts 3 plus the Remind DLC. Which sounds to me, apart from like handheld versions of the previous game of some of the games, entries here and there.
Yeah,
I think that's just about everything on the console side of things. I'll also say that it is currently on sale. So RRPs for $90, currently on sale at $72. I don't know what that is in GBP, but
that's still a chunk.
That is a chunk. But again, cloud version, I'm not interested. The second that you say cloud version, it's like, but that's annoying as fuck if you.
Hey Jonesy, do you want my sealed copy of Kingdom Hearts 3 for the PlayStation 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I will defend cloud versions, but where it makes sense. So, for instance, I played that fucking timed demo of Control cloud version. Fucking flawless.
Sure, but that's Control flawless on the Switch. Like, okay, but what about Kingdom Hearts?
But this is what I'm saying. Like, as long as it makes sense for it to be a cloud version. Maybe they were like,
because you timed access to that, where you were like, okay, I'm going to play it. I'm going to be somewhere I can make sure I can play it because I've got a specific time I'm going to be playing Control, which is totally fair enough. Now you want to play games the size of Kingdom Hearts, and you're going to play a cloud version, and you're going to guarantee that you're always in a location where you've got like good enough streaming service that you're going to be able to like play that. Like that puts out the window for like any sort of traveling, when you do your traveling to like business stuff, you can't play this.
Yeah, no. But in their defense, I guess they had to do this because how weird it would have been. You include Kingdom Hearts 3, which will not be able to run on the Switch, right? So that has to be a cloud version,
right? Okay.
And then what are you going to do? You're going to say, 1 and
the other one,
1.5 and 2.5 and 2.8. Oh, they're going to be on the disc, but the rest is going to be cloud. Like, I
would have rather that because at least you could play them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I tell you one thing. there is another studio out there that fortunately is willing to do the hard work to port a fucking PlayStation 2 video game to the Nintendo Switch, and that's the good folks behind Klonoa, who are bringing back that big-eared freak that no one missed, courtesy of the Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series, which is going to bring the first 2 games to the Switch in July. All joking aside, people still say the name Klonoa every now and then, so someone's going to be happy.
And I will say that ATG at one point would have made a video, pretty sure we did, of games that should be remastered next when the whole remaster fad was happening, and Klonoa was on that list.
Was Chrono Cross?
A Chrono Trigger probably was.
Probably, actually, yeah. We were quite good at getting the weeb games in there because we knew it would make some people happy. Like when we made a whole big pitch about Parasite Eve, and it's like, yeah, people are going to really dig this.
They did.
They did. You know what else people are digging?
Yeah.
It's the announcement that, and brace yourselves here, a bit of a shock one. Portal Companion Collection is coming to the Switch this year, which, as the name would suggest, brings together Portal 1 and 2 for release on Nintendo's handheld console. The thing that's interesting about it, though, is it marks the first time a Valve-developed game has appeared on a Nintendo system ever. There's been Valve-adjacent products like that, the Portal Bridge Builder thing and stuff like that. But Valve have never developed, or in this case, they're co-developing a game that's been released on a Nintendo platform. They are working on this with one of NVIDIA's internal teams called Lightspeed Studios, who are apparently the people behind the RTX version of Quake 2. So this is kind of like an NVIDIA and Valve pair-up, which I think is really cool for this release, because obviously Portal and Portal 2 are fucking all-time classics. Also, very interesting, though, going forward, in terms of what it could mean for other Valve properties, especially as Valve themselves start to look at what it takes to, get their games running on their own handheld platform.
Yeah.
If we're talking about a future where, fuck it, if we get some like the Switch, whatever the Switch version of the Orange Box looks like, where you just like wrap up a bunch of Valve classics on that console, that would be awesome.
That's the thing, because what this means is that Source runs on the Switch. And that's like, hey, you want a Half-Life 2?
Source runs on my Switch. I ate a Big Mac over the top of it, and the Source ran down the screen. Yeah.
You're a chump. But the reason why it's co-developed by NVIDIA's internal team is because they worked with Valve to get, I think it was just the original Portal working on the NVIDIA Shield.
Right.
And I think from that's kind of where this has grown out from. And then obviously the Switch runs the NVIDIA Tegra X1 chip. So
yes.
I think this is cool, though. Like, Portal on the Switch is pretty sick. I'm going to reverse everything I've said and said that's cool.
Yeah,
any place you can play Portal is good.
If it was just Portal 1, I'd be like, meh. But Portal 1 and Portal 2, like Portal 2 is fucking like top tier, top shelf, buddy.
Yeah. And I think they're bringing this over with all the co-op stuff intact as well. So
yes,
you and your buddy have your Switches in the same vicinity, then you can link up and do some Portal 2 action. And it makes sense. I don't regret replaying both Portal and Portal 2 last year because of this. It saves me money in the long run. But this is a smart move, and it makes sense. It's also promising for the future. One move that I'm not going to say whether it's smart or not, or what it means for the future, but means absolutely nothing to me, probably because this is a game that never even got released in the West. I feel like that's the second time we've said that now. And Chris, the pronunciation, Live Alive, I think it's called. Live Alive.
I don't fucking know, dude.
It's very strange. But basically, it's an RPG that came out in Japan back in the day. Apparently, it was quite good. It never came out in the West, and now it has.
It does look pretty cool, and they've gone for that 2.5D HD SD bullshit that they did with Octopath Traveler and Triangle Fantasy, which is still coming out and still called Triangle Fantasy. Good. It looks fucking good. It looks so good, and it's almost like you talk about Chrono Cross. What they really should have done was remake Chrono Trigger in the style.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. You wanted a 2D HD version of Trigger.
You have no idea how well that would sell. The same with Final Fantasy.
That's coming next year.
I mean,
I'll be all over it. That I will be all over. And you know what else? If they did Final Fantasy 6 in that style, I'd be fucking all over that. But instead, we're getting those shitty pixel remasters of those Final Fantasy games.
Yes, it's disappointing, but there were some things that we could genuinely get excited about in this direct for one reason or another, even if you didn't actually want to play the fucking thing, because lads, we finally have a reason to put our wrist straps on and to anticipate what is, I hope is going to be one of the most memorable soundtracks of the entire year.
Oh,
Because I don't know if you heard the news, but sports is back. It went away for many years, as we all know. Sports just disappeared off the face of the earth, and sports are officially back, courtesy of Nintendo Switch Sports, which feels weird to say, but it is, of course, part of the Wii Sports lineage, if you will.
hell
Can
yeah.
you call it a sequel?
It's weird. It's a weirder one, isn't it? With this sort of game, it's
Yeah.
a sequel. But I think you're right.
I'm-
Lineage, part of the Wii Sports
sequel or
lineage.
not, I'm glad they stuck to the naming conventions, and I'm glad this thing is called Nintendo Switch Sports. And when you watch the trailer and some of the gameplay they showed, this very much is like it's Wii Sports for the Nintendo Switch. Which, in an age where they made the stupid fucking mistake of making 1-2 Switch the kind of gesture-based, movement-based launch title for the Switch, this makes so much more sense. It's a couple of years too late, but the good news is they did that weird Nintendo thing of keeping it very secret and under wraps, and it's actually out in 2 months' time.
Yeah.
So
this is quality. Like, this is the sort of thing that you can get excited about. Like, with the Switch, I think
It should have launched with it though. Like you said, it shouldn't have been 1-2 Switch. It should have been this. But hey, it's here now.
If they had launched this with the Switch instead of 1-2 Switch, and we can assume this is either both A, good, and B, the motion elements work just as well as the Wii, on the Joy-Cons as they did with the Wiimotes, then this would have sold tens of millions of copies already.
Yeah,
and they also would have sold. They also would have sold extra Joy-Cons. Because this is one thing that I think with Nintendo, obviously, they're not a software company. They're not just a console company. All the peripherals are like massive. Like with the Wii, one of the biggest things of the Wii was all the peripheral stuff. You need to get extra remotes. You need to get like the board.
The Wii Sports made people so crazy that they bought plastic things to put on the end of their Wiimote, even though they didn't do anything. They bought fake racket heads and fake golf club heads to put on their Wiimotes. And they were just pure plastic.
And Nintendo know that, which is so surprising that they just slept on sport for so long. And then, but maybe not. Maybe I'm full of it. Maybe the fact that they waited and that they pumped out like other stuff, and then they got everyone to get the Switch. And now that they're everywhere, now they pump out sports, and it gives another little tentpole thing where it bumps people buying more Switches and the OLEDs. And then loads of people buy silly little plastic rackets to go in there and start smashing their lights again. And doing all sorts of stuff. But already I'm excited for Christmas 2022, just so I can get the family round, get the Switch out and play some Wii Sports. Bring back the balance board. It's time for some snowboarding and some yoga.
I'm with you on that one. Bring back the balance board 100%.
We'll see. There's no balance board yet, but there is going to be kind of a Wii Fit, what was it called? The fucking adventure Ring Fit. Thank you.
Ring Fit.
I was going to call it Wii Fit Adventure. I was like, no, a Ring Fit Adventure style leg strap that will be used in part of some of the new sports. Soccer, for example, is one of the sports being added to the game. Other new sports include volleyball, which we got a little look at the gameplay of, courtesy of our two hosts, and badminton. Although I will say that a few fan favourites do return, like bowling and tennis. That said, anyone super passionate about golf will have to wait a little bit longer. That's coming in a free update a few months down the line. And by the way, Chris, speaking of HD 2D and styles like that, we did actually get another look at the aforementioned Triangle Strategy, which the game that for some reason they chose to never change its name. There's a demo out now, which I think did some good for Octopath back in the day, but I don't know.
But don't you remember there was that demo that they released for this game, and it just didn't land.
Everything about this isn't landing for some reason.
Man, and even with this trailer, it's just like, okay, you haven't changed the name, and it's still kind of got that like super stifled kind of writing.
Yes.
It's just like this. I don't know. On paper, it should have been like a fucking home run for me, but it's just worse than the sum of its parts, as it were.
Yes. Just like how, on paper, the idea of playing a game like Cuphead on the go sounds like it could be fun, until you remember how big the analog sticks and the Joy-Cons are, and you realise that actually no one wants to fucking do that. But you will have another opportunity to when the Delicious Last Course comes out on the 30th of June. Do you want to know how stupid I am? It took me until yesterday to realise that Delicious Last Course stands
for DLC.
Yeah.
Well,
do you know what? I just realised it now.
There you go. Well, you know what, Jonesy? If it took you that long to realise that, then maybe you and me are both suited for rookie mode in Metroid Dread. Because the title, which, hey, I'll be honest, I struggle with some of its more difficult moments, did get an update, a free one at that, which has added the rookie mode, which makes the game easier, and a Dread mode, which not only makes things harder, but actually means that you die in one hit. You basically have to play the entire game without getting touched once by anything.
That's insane.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that it's not like an insta-fail mode.
Well, it's
like you can reload a save or whatever.
I don't know.
You must
be.
And that's just, but that just means it's a pain in the ass. Like, cause then you can just you reload the save, and then just like that's just annoying.
Yeah, but people do that. People are sadists and weirdos. And again, if there's one thing we know about Nintendo, and they like to give weirdos what they want. And speaking of giving weirdos what they want, Earthbound's back, baby. Sorry, that's a low blow. But Earthbound is actually back. Earthbound, aka Mother 2, and Earthbound Beginnings, which is, I guess, now the official anglicized name for Mother 1.
Mother 1, yeah.
Are both out via the Nintendo Switch online subscription service as of today. Well, yesterday, actually. So you can go and play them now.
I'm kind of like curious. Like, I've never played them. And obviously, we've covered them quite a lot on ATG. I'm kind of like curious, but I'm also not.
I'm not that curious.
Yeah, and there's also
not curious enough to bite the bullet.
There's also a part of me that wonders how much of the mystique around Earthbound in general is owed to the fact that the Mother 3 situation is so strange and has been so strange for so long, and it gets this weird aura around it that it's something it's not. I understand that they were important, influential games and far more interesting than they looked on face value, but still. I haven't signed up to that service yet, and I'm not going to now.
This isn't going to make you.
Do you know what else isn't going to make me sign up for the Nintendo Switch Online service?
What?
The prospect of 48 new tracks being added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
But
that's
dude,
a 4 and an 8.
But they've got Coconut Mall. How can you not be?
To be fair, that is one thing that is somewhat enticing. Is these are all classic tracks from previous Mario Kart games being brought forward for Mario Kart 8, and they are kind of being drip fed out. I think it's like 6 weeks of 8 courses, or maybe the other way around, 8 weeks of 6 courses, starting at some point this year and apparently running all the way up until next year. And they're going to be delivered via the Booster Course Pass, which is free if you have the Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack membership.
Yeah.
So the more expensive one.
I'll be honest with you, fellas. Like, this is a genius move by them. It's obviously the #1 Switch game by a large margin. It's kind of just increases its longevity. But I just don't know. I mean, fine, maybe they didn't need to, but this seems like something that they should have been doing a long time ago.
Yes. Great, more content for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but yeah, it does seem weird, especially with how many Mario Kart 9 rumors there were floating around that, like, we're here again, like, extending the life of this behemoth of a kart game into next year, guaranteed.
Yeah. Do you know what Mario Kart 9 is? Nintendo Switch Pro. It's like the same thing. It's like people are absolutely convinced of it, and yet Nintendo pull in a Nintendo, and they say,
"No, not yet.
It's actually this thing. So go fuck yourself."
And do you know what? Like, speaking of the Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo themselves have actually got me slightly worried about what other games might in fact be waiting for the Nintendo Switch Pro, because while the final one more thing slot of this Nintendo Direct could have been taken up by any number of things, from Breath of the Wild 2 to Metroid Prime 4 to Bayonetta 3 to any of the above, it was in fact taken by a game that none of us are excited about, but again, as is the case with half this fucking stream, someone else is. That's Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is due out in September. Xenoblade, from what I can gather, home to luscious environments that probably aren't as fun to explore as they are to look at, and the worst English accents that you've ever heard from people that somehow are actually English.
Honestly, that's maybe the thing that puts me off the series the most. Again, on paper, it's something that should be a fucking home run for me and my interests and my tastes. But I just was never able to get into the first Xenoblade Chronicles, and 2, they just went all weird with the swords that were actually people and then the voice acting, and this is just like flutes and voice acting. It's like, no thanks, keep it.
Yeah. See,
I'm out. I don't think this is kind of weird.
I think really the answer was in front of them the whole time, which is you don't take the idea of swords and make the swords people. You take the idea of can the protagonist somehow inhale the swords or engage some kind of a mouthful mode where they can eat the sword whole and become the sword.
I like that already. Mouthful mode has become like something anything can do. Like something needs other games are gonna they need a mouthful mode. They need to just engulf it in a giant mouth.
I want fan art of Jonesy doing mouthful mode on Chris.
No,
I don't want to see that.
I do not want to see that either.
I love how
I have enough nightmares at night. Okay,
because in my head I can envisage that, and do you know what it is? Because it's like you're still standing there, fine, but there's just this giant gaping maw around you.
Don't say gaping. Don't say gaping.
And then you can see their eyes at the top looking over, and then their teeth at the bottom under your feet.
Do you know what? I'm gonna say it. Because Xenoblade Chronicles marked the end of the Direct, I think Mouthful Mode might have been the most fun and interesting thing to come from that whole fucking stream. I'm excited about things like Nintendo Switch Sports and the Portal Collection. But I'm on Team Mouthful Mode.
Yeah, I'm all about the Mouthful Mode.
It's a weird one, man. Like, I'm sure for so many people this was like a really decent Direct, and by all means, it was a decent Direct. But I look at this Direct and like, while there are some games that excite me, honestly, I'm not going to pick up any of these.
Brutal.
Fair enough.
And with that,
it's the fucking honest truth.
Direct.
And you know what? Like, out of the three of us, I'm the one who's probably most JRPG inclined.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not touching any of those JRPGs.
Yeah. But like, I know, Jamie, you know, like, you've obviously expressed interest in Kirby.
Mario Strikers, I'm on one.
Mario Strikers, potentially
Jamie
sports.
has expressed interest in Kirby.
Yeah,
you heard it
exactly.
First. He wants to get mouthful.
Next week, Jamie's going to be mouthed off by Kirby, and then he's going to have to clean him out like a fleshlight.
Oh yeah, big time. Just get a little cotton swab in there and.
No, it won't. It'll be holding by the hair, a handful of soap and water.
Hair?
Kirby's little head.
Kirby doesn't. Jonesy's imagining a very different scenario.
Where his hair would be, his little scrunchy skin.
Now that's clean shaven, baby.
Yeah, I don't know if Kirby's got like the kind of skin that you could grab by the handful. It doesn't look that elastic.
Mate, look at him being all mouthful. What do you mean he's not elastic? He's pure elastic.
He is pure elastic.
True, actually. Okay. Now you're really selling to me the idea of a Kirby being pure elastic.
You can get your full arm in Kirby and you see it coming out the back.
My wildest dreams are coming through.
Just scrubbing it. It with the bubbles coming out, and Kirby's there like.
Do you know what? At the risk of awakening our audiences inner perverts, that's actually what I want to know from the folks at home is if you could engage mouthful mode, what would you consume?
Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like it.
I think
I'm envisioning a lot of comments are just going to say Jamie's cock.
You don't have to engage mouthful mode for that. I'll be honest. You just regular mode. It's not much for a mouthful, Chris. Jonesy, by the way, that was a suggestion for the folks at home. You don't actually have to sit there contemplating what you would eat in mouthful mode.
What would I consume in mouthful mode?
Your reflex bow. And you could do it like, sometimes you take like an orange quarter and you put it in your mouth and it's a big smiley face. But you do a massive smiley face with your reflex bow.
Good idea. All right, well, that's something for you guys to dwell on, and we've got something for the folks at home to dwell on. But in the meantime, that was the end of the Nintendo Direct, and that means that this is the end of this week's episode of the SuperShow podcast. So thank you both so much for joining me on this voyage and for staying up so late. We probably should try and break this habit at some point, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon.
Fuck it. Next week, 1 hour podcast. I'm calling.
You heard it here first, folks. Next week, 1 hour podcast. Stay tuned for that because that's going to be landing on the YouTube page. So make sure you're subscribed. And if you're watching us there now, you can like this video and leave a comment. And hey, why not head over to patreon.com/supershow where you can pledge as little or as much as you'd like to help us make sure that we can keep going back week after week, draining all the energy we have and talking about sort of essentially fellatio. Let's be honest. Like, there's no point in beating around the bush anymore.
Yeah.
And on that note, I say thank you very much for watching and or listening. And with any luck, we'll see you again, same time, same place, next week. And in the meantime, happy mouthful moding, folks. Bye.
Go suck yourselves. Goodbye.